Did you notice that all of these pack drops coincide exactly with the start time of the deeper dive, even if it's at different times each day?
Yeah, it's really annoying.
Those are literally the only lyrics I can sing to that song without getting canceled.
To what? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's so bad.
Go any further into that song and you're in trouble.
Oh, now I get spot number 5,555 when there's 100K.
And I'm 10,000. Are you kidding me? This is the first one I've gotten in months, and it's going to be straight dog shit. You already know. Last time, 2 of my 3 were the same player, and it was ball.
It was who?
Ball. I got 2 out of 3 ball.
I forgot he even had a moment.
Apparently, yes. He has many. You have to hear the bet that Josh and I made on the strategy show today.
What was it?
What
was it?
I'd need more than 30 seconds to tell you, but it's pretty good. There's a 0% chance he loses, but especially now that Kent Bazemore's out. Oh, Laffy, that's right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com Deeper Dive presented by OddsShopper. I'm Dave Loughran. On the Twitters at Laffy_D, LOUGHY_D. Joined 5 days a week by Adam Scherer at ShipMyMoney DFS. And before I go to him, apologies if you are watching the MLB Live Before Lock show. Tyler lives in Texas producing the show. In Texas, it's just been a shit storm lately. So I guess another actual storm hit. Power went down. Few minutes were left in the show, and we couldn't get back in time. But hopefully you got the goods, and hopefully you're ready to talk some basketball. What's going on, brother?
How's it going? Pretty quiet Friday. I was kind of surprised when I woke up this morning and looked and saw, only 7 games, late start time, kind of a relaxing Friday slate.
Yeah, it is. And I'm kind of looking forward to it. Although I said to Josh this morning on the strategy show, Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. Today's show was fantastic. Go back and watch it. Even if the games are over, go back and watch it. That yesterday seemed like madness, but it actually wasn't that bad because there were true pivots that made life a little bit easier. The DeRozan news sucked, and I know you had him in like 80% of your lineups, but you still ended up binking. You turned 2,000 into 16,000, so it was a solid night for you regardless.
Yeah, yesterday was good. And yeah, I mean, even the DeRozan news, it was easy enough because it was a shorter slate. You still had a half hour to adjust stuff. It was annoying because you had to go back to your computer and you thought you were done for the night, but it wasn't really on the scale of crazy April NBA slates. Last night wasn't bad.
Yeah, it was. He said, "Put your hat on, you psychopath." And then Robert says he got a fresh haircut. Yeah, like a week ago. I'll get a haircut once a month, and then I'll probably do one show without a hat, and then just realize it's not worth it. But I got things to do, so we're making things happen over here. First question before we dive into this, Adam, as always, looking at this slate, you've got a lot of top-tier players. Westbrook, who's been an automatic triple-double. Even though the point totals haven't been great lately, he's still been spectacular. Nikola Jokic against Golden State, Steph Curry's price coming up there in the mid 10K range. Kyrie Irving without Durant and Harden. Jason Tatum without Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker. The list goes on and on and on tonight. Paul George as well, 9,300 on DraftKings without Kawhi Leonard, who's out at least another couple games. There are a lot of top tier options to target. How do you approach that tonight with what we have in terms of mid-range and value?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird slate because you have all these guys that look really good at the top, as you were naming, but we don't have a ton in the way of cheap value, at least right now. Like there's some spots you can look to, but there's not that many spots where, you have a 3 to 4K guy that really jumps out. But then even in the mid-range, there's some underpriced guys that look really good. So I think I kind of think it's just going to be like a fun slate because like you're going to build lineups that you really like. You're able to get, a lot of players in that look really good. But then there's going to be like those 1 or 2 players where you're kind of just looking at it like, man, I really hope this guy doesn't suck because, I need him in there to open up everything else, but I'm not really confident. So to me, those slates are kind of fun because like there's more, I don't know, I guess like surprise to it than the slates where it's just like, oh, this team has 8 guys and every 3K guy is going to score 30 points.
Well, we've got 7 games to get into, about 55 minutes to do it. And then what we'll do afterwards is turn it over to the NBA Live Before Lock crew. Greg Ehrenberg and Eric Lindquist going to be taking you through that one. So stick around for that. And if you missed the UFC 261 strategy show today, go back and check that out. I know you have 3 tickets to the live final, so you've got a horse in this race for sure.
Yeah. Looking forward to round 1 tomorrow. That'll be nice. Didn't know when the final was going to be, so kind of just had 3 tickets sitting in my DraftKings account for like a month and a half, but finally announced when it is. So should be fun, and then the fights should be good too. Really good card tomorrow.
No question. UFC 261, all one word, get you half off everything we have for UFC content at Awesemo. 50% off. That's everything from top fighter tool, the probability tool, the fantasy point projections, ownership, player value rankings, pro plays, expert Slack chat. Adam uses the tools. Like I said, he's got 3 tickets to the live final. Our boy Steve Buzzard, the Colts, or you might know him as the Colts. He just took down like 75,000 last weekend using our tools for UFC. I don't even know if these guys could name most of the fighters on each slate, but that's why tools are great. So it's less than $15, and it'll get you 2 pay-per-views, not just this one, but an incredible one coming up in May, and everything in between that, the entire month half off. So check it out. Use the promo code UFC251. It's only good through tomorrow. All right, let's dive into it. What is going on, everybody? Hit that thumbs up. Let's jump to, what do we got? How many people we got watching here? About 1,000? We could at least get to 200. That would be 20%. I'd be pleased with that to get started. And hit that subscription or subscribe button if you haven't done so yet. And if you want to join the team or at the Awesemo membership club, well, it's $2.99. And you get pretty cool emojis. We got an Adam emoji. We got a Josh mustache emoji now. We got an EMAC 2024 emoji coming. Little spoiler alert there for all of you EMAC lovers, and a whole lot more. So it's a lot of fun. You get the badges as well. If you want to do it, that's cool. I got mine the other day. And thank you, Arcatelza, for the super chat. He said, this is for Adam, copyrights to the Twitter handle. Yeah, that's David Porter, who took down yet another couple contests yesterday. So
Burton, yeah.
All right. Congrats, man. I appreciate that. Let's do this. Miami and Atlanta. The Miami Heat in Atlanta without, well, facing the Trae Young-less Hawks. Miami's pretty healthy. You've got Tyler Hero questionable. That's really it. And as far as ownership goes, you're talking about a pretty priced up Jimmy Butler at 9,700 on DraftKings. I think we can start here. I don't really know how I get to many players, if any, for Miami tonight, especially given how the top end options are going to be really hard to find ways to get into lineups with so many other great top tier plays.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I mean, you look at Bam, you look at Butler. Those are, of course, the 2 guys that stand out the most from the Miami side. But Butler's priced up to 9,700 on DraftKings. You have, that's that price range where you have Paul George, you have Jason Tatum. You have all these guys that are playing on shorthanded teams, and then Butler's on a close to fully healthy Miami team. I do think Butler on FanDuel maybe you can get to. He's 9,300. Small forward's a pretty tough position, at least right now, with we'll probably get some other stuff opening up, but right now it's not a great position. So maybe getting the Butler on FanDuel is a little bit easier, but on DraftKings, I think it's really tough. And then Bam looks fine at 8,200. I think, this is someone that we know produces around 1.25 fantasy points per minute. But the problem I think you're going to run into from a roster construction standpoint is that you have Jokic at the top of the position who looks great, but you also have several centers in the like 4 to 6K range that I think look really, really good. And so the way I haven't built lineups yet, but the way that I see roster construction most likely going is either paying up for Jokic or looking to save money at the position. I think it's going to be kind of weird to try and go mid-range, or upper mid-range at center, which does make Bam kind of interesting as a contrarian play, I guess, because I don't think a lot of people will get to that build. But, in terms of how often I expect to get there, I think it'll be pretty tough just because of the value at the position.
Yeah, and if you just go to our ownership projections and filter Miami Heat, there's not a single player on DraftKings right now that's getting more than 9% ownership. And I'm not going to lie, I was even a little bit surprised to see Butler getting that much, but I do understand it's against the Hawks. And, they're, what are they, basically touchdown favorites, 5.5, 6-point favorites, depending on where you look. So I get it. On FanDuel, though, just to spend a minute here, a little bit longer, since we have plenty of time today, we just updated ownership 4 minutes ago. We've got him at 34.6% on DraftKings, on FanDuel. He is one of the highest owned players on the entire slate right now. How much of that is just a lack of talent and depth at the small forward position?
Yeah, I think that's what it is, and it's not to say that Butler is bad or anything. He's also cheaper on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. You're getting a very good player, very high upside guy. But then it also is a huge factor that on FanDuel, you do have to roster 2 guys at that position. And it's just not a very good position. Like there was, when I wrote the deep dive today, I didn't really like any of the small forward options. So it's a really tough position. And I think that is why you'll see a lot of ownership going to Butler.
On the other side of this one, the Atlanta Hawks will not have Trae Young for at least a couple of games. That's significant because on FanDuel, Brandon Goodwin got priced up. On DraftKings, he's still 3,400. So we got to start here. It's a pretty easy conversation to have. In the 2 games that Trae Young missed on this 11th and 13th of April, Brandon Goodwin played 37 minutes in both of them, Adam. Meanwhile, Lou Williams played 29 and 25 minutes respectively. So how do we approach the backcourt here, specifically Goodwin and Lou Williams? And can we play them in the same lineup? Because not to ramble on here, but I look at Lou Williams and I see someone who's getting really no ownership while Brandon Goodwin is getting a ton of ownership, the highest projected owned player on the slate. Lou still has it in him to have some solid games. He's carrying like 8% ownership right now. And it does seem like one of those spots we might be able to exploit at $4,300.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that on DraftKings at 3,400, Goodwin is clearly one of the best value options, assuming he starts. Played 34 minutes or 37 minutes each in the last 2 games without Young. The other game he started this year without Young, he played about 28 minutes. So he's averaging 34 minutes per game in those starts, about 0.8 DraftKings points per minute. At 3,400, it's just, kind of really, really difficult to get away from him. 5K on FanDuel is a different story. But then on DraftKings, 4,300 for Lou Williams as well. It's clearly not as favorable a price point. You don't feel quite as comfortable, but he does have about a 26% usage rate without Trae Young on the floor since he joined the Hawks. And like you said, in 3 games without Young, he's played 25, 29, and 30 minutes. So if you expect that you're getting 26 to 28 minutes somewhere in there from Lou Williams, it's not a sure thing. It is, still a tough matchup against Miami, a really unappealing spot. But this is someone that's still going to go out there and shoot, and he probably, is playing mid to upper 20s in minutes. So it's a pretty appealing spot, I think, given that the ownership is low. If you were getting a lot of ownership going to Lou Williams, I think you could kind of look at it and say, this is a pretty tough matchup. He is a pretty volatile player. I don't know if I need to, be getting to the field if he was popular, but the fact that he's not popular, the kind of upside this guy gives you. Yeah,
he gives you a ton of upside. There's no doubt about that. If we're to spend a little bit more time on Goodwin, do you think Goodwin should be, and pretty easy question to answer, but maybe you'll have a different opinion. Do you think Goodwin should be the highest owned player on the slate?
Yeah, or at least, one of them. It's and talking specifically DraftKings, but yeah, it's just kind of, we talk about it a lot, that it's a lot more difficult to find pivots on, like basically minimum salary guys that are comparable. When you talk about, it doesn't, like when you talk about a pay up option, you talk about someone around 10K, it doesn't really matter how good they are, how good of a spot it is. There's going to be people priced around them that give you at least the same ceiling, even if their medium projection's a bit lower. When you talk about guys like Goodwin at 3,400, there's not really alternatives. I mean, on this particular slate, you have Howell Neto at the same price, but in general, you can't just go pick a 3K guy and say he has the same ceiling as Brandon Goodwin, because most guys in that price range aren't playing minutes. So it makes it totally different, and it's why you can get just so much ownership on those guys, and it still makes sense.
Did you get your pack?
Just
making sure you're not missing it, because you probably got redirected already.
Yeah, good call. Thanks.
Oh, I got you, brother. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, missed out yesterday. So
yep, I missed out on the rebound pack, but I don't get good ones anymore anyway. So with Trae Young sidelined, Clint Capella questionable, Danilo Gallinari questionable, DeAndre Hunter still out. Can we look to anybody else here, even though a lot of their price points have come up a decent amount, and the matchup against Miami is neutral at best?
Yeah, so Capella sort of falls into that same category as Bam Adebayo, where and he's questionable, but this is, obviously assuming he plays. He's been playing big minutes. You're probably getting 34, 35 minutes from him, albeit in an unappealing spot. He's a very good fantasy producer, but it's just from a roster construction standpoint, it's kind of tough to get to that build. So more of a contrarian piece in tournaments than a priority. John Collins played about 28 minutes last game. I'm assuming you're getting 28 to 30 minutes here. He's got a 25.5% usage rate without Trae Young on the floor since last year, but his salary at $6,800 on DraftKings isn't particularly appealing in this matchup, I don't think either. You can say the same thing about Bogdanovic, who does see a little bit more production without Young and should play 36 or 37 minutes. It's just a pretty unappealing matchup, and I don't think anything really stands out at the price points outside of Goodwin and to a lesser extent Lou Williams. So if you're playing a lot of lineups looking to like a Herter, a Collins, a Capella, guys like that, it makes sense to have some, but they're not guys that I'd be prioritizing.
Okay. And I think there were only 100,000 people in line, so no wonder we got packs.
I'll say, it wasn't really announced, was it?
It was like impromptu. Yeah. So I guess everyone just gets them. So don't feel too great about that. Where do you think Miami is in pace over the last month?
Second to last.
Dead last now.
Okay.
95 possessions per 48. I mean, that is brutally slow. Really, really slow. The Hawks are at 98.25. It should be a pretty slow crawling game, but just with Trae Young's absence, that opens up enough to where I'm not totally worried about that. But I also don't want to pay a lot for really anybody else here. Now, I'll ask you this before we move on to Boston and Brooklyn, because we'll spend a decent amount of time there. Clint Capella, if he sits, do we turn to Okongwu? What do we do if he sits? Because that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I mean, if he sits, we saw Okongwu get the starts in his place when he was out before and actually play pretty big minutes. So he's coming in at 3,100. You have Nathan Knight coming in at 3,100 as well. Assuming Okongwu is the one that starts, I would look to him as one of the best values on the slate.
Okay. Boston, Brooklyn, no Kemba, no Jaylen Brown, no Robert Williams. Evan Fournier, however, has been activated. He will play tonight for whatever that's worth. They're 3.5-point dogs against the Nets, 225 total, but the Nets are shorthanded as well. We'll kick it off with the Boston Celtics first. We got to start with Jason Tatum, who shot miserably yesterday, has now shot 3 for 17 in back-to-back games. He's 6 for 34 over his last 2 starts, 2 for 12 from beyond the arc. His peripherals have looked nice, but man, has his shooting taken a turn for the worst over the last 2. I'm not worried about it, but yesterday was a really rough shooting performance against the Suns.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing where, the opportunities are there. You can't be too upset about, the fact that he shot poorly.
Hold on. Capella's out. Snell is out. Danilo Gallinari is a game time decision. So Capella confirmed out right now.
Yeah. I was in the process of pulling up Okongwu's game logs without Capella just to see exactly what he had done. But 32 minutes on April 7th for Okongwu in the game that Capella missed against Memphis. So if he is in the starting lineup, I think you can, give him upper 20s, low 30s in minutes and feel pretty good about it.
Okay. How much would you feel comfortable having? I know it's a tough question to ask, but
as much as I get to. I'm not. Right. It's the same thing I was saying with Brandon Goodwin. When you get to that price range, it's just, especially someone like Okongwu that produces at a reasonable fantasy rate. It's not like you're, it's not someone you expect if he plays 30 minutes to get 15 fantasy points. If he plays 28, 30 minutes, he probably is someone you need to win tournaments. So I don't, and the downside is just so low when you have someone starting, especially at center and at minimum salary. So just as much as I can get.
He played 32 minutes on the 7th. With Capella out, but John Collins was also out. So I'm assuming, did you mention that? I'm sorry, I was reading.
No, I didn't. I think that is a good point because we had seen previous games where, he played in the mid-teens. So I do think, if he doesn't start, then I'd be concerned. But if he starts, I assume even if he doesn't get 32 minutes, that he's getting enough minutes to be a very good option at his price tag. You could potentially get Collins starting at center, though, in which case Collins' production goes up and Okongwu would obviously be riskier.
Yeah, and there's still Nathan Knight and Bruno Fernando who have played sparingly but have been in the rotation recently. Let's hope that does not continue and that Okongwu gets at least 24 minutes. That would be nice. Back to Boston, Adam. I cut you off just because that was big news and I wanted to hit on that, but floor's yours.
Yeah, so I mean, you can't really just you can't take Tatum's poor shooting and carry it over to tonight. The opportunities were there. Without Jalen or Kemba on the floor this year, he's got a 35.8% usage rate. If you just take Kemba off, it's like 32.5%. Evan Fournier is a higher usage guy than most of the Boston replacements, but he's still not Jaylen Brown. So you expect that you're going to get that mid-30s usage rate from Jason Tatum again. 23.5% assist percentage without Kemba. It's just, a decent spot against Brooklyn, but more importantly, playing without the two other highest usage guys on the team, I think you can go right back to Tatum. Of course, at 10K, there is plenty of competition there. You have Paul George at that same price point. You have Westbrook on this slate. You have Jokic. So I'm not saying, Tatum is someone you have to lock in, especially on DraftKings at 10K, but I do think that even at that price tag, there is plenty of upside.
Okay. Where would you rank Tatum amongst Westbrook, Jokic, Curry, Irving, and all of those other top tier guys?
Fourth or fifth.
Oh, wow. Okay. Even though everybody's out, I guess I see what you're saying though.
I'd put Jokic, Westbrook, George, and then probably Kyrie ahead of him. The Kyrie Irving one's tough for me because I think that one's closer
because Kyrie's an elite scorer and he can give you some peripherals, but there's a lot of games where those peripherals aren't necessarily going to be there. But with Durant and Harden out, it's tough. All right.
And I mean, Kyrie's got a 43% assist percentage without Harden or Durant.
I know. Look, he's just not a good rebounder and doesn't grab a ton of stocks. But yeah, Tatum's going to need to knock down his shots. What are you doing with the rest of Boston? Because you have no Kemba, no Robert Williams either.
Yeah, so I mean, you get Tristan Thompson again as a reasonable value option at center. Not the most exciting guy, but he's averaged about 0.9 of a fantasy point per minute as a starter this year. Played 33.8 minutes against Phoenix yesterday. I expect that you get 30 plus from him again tonight. The problem is just that when you look at the center position, you have some guys in his price range that are higher ceiling guys. You have Yusuf Nurkic, you have Ivica Zubac. Now you potentially have Okongwu, as a better point per dollar option because he's so much cheaper. So I think Thompson has a role in some lineups, but he's not the first cheap center I'd be getting to. It's a little bit easier on FanDuel probably because there's a bigger gap between him and guys like Nurkic. But either way, I don't think that it's going to be that difficult to find the money for the guys that you like a little bit more. Marcus Smart, maybe. I don't like his price tag that much at 6,900, but he has averaged about a fantasy point per minute without Kemba or Jaylen Brown on the floor. I think he's going to be a stronger play on FanDuel than DraftKings because DraftKings, you just have the roster flexibility to slide some other guys over to the shooting guard position. Whereas on FanDuel, it's a lot more difficult to fill out that position tonight. You have George and Beal at the top that both look really, really good, but if you're looking to go like mid-range at shooting guard, it gets kind of tough. So I think 6,900 for Marcus Smart at shooting guard on FanDuel is relatively appealing. On DraftKings, I think it'll be a little bit more difficult to get to. Anything
else for the front court you want to hit on?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we know Boston just is going to probably rotate enough guys in where there's not a whole lot of value. I guess it's worth mentioning Romeo Langford started and played 31 minutes yesterday. He's not a particularly productive player when he plays with the starting lineup, and there's no guarantee he plays 30 minutes again. Like you could very easily get 24 minutes. He is minimum salary, so it's a guy that, if you're playing 150 lineups and we don't get a bunch of good value opening up between now and lock, you can have some, but I wouldn't feel very good about it.
He had 0.15 DraftKings points per minute yesterday.
Yeah, I have him in for like just north of a half of a fantasy point per minute tonight.
Amazing. 32 minutes, 5 fantasy points. The best part is if you look across his entire box score, he had more personal fouls than any other category.
That's not very good.
It's impressive across 32 minutes, right? 3 fouls, 2 points, 1 block, and 1 rebound. That is heinous. And I'd much rather go to someone like Okongwu at center who can fall into some peripherals than go to Langford for sure. We teased the Kyrie Irving a little bit, talked about him. You're going to have to pay for him. He's not egregiously expensive. He's 10-1 on DraftKings, only $9,700 on FanDuel. How much do you like him today, and where do you think you'll land on Kyrie against Boston?
Yeah, I mean, I like him a lot. He's played 467 minutes this year without Durant, Harden, or Caris LeVert on the floor. 34.4% usage rate, 43.2% assist percentage, 1.53 DraftKings points per minute. To me, it puts him behind Westbrook. It puts him behind Jokic. But aside from that, he's just as good, I think, as any other option on this slate. He's certainly in the conversation with Jason Tatum and with Paul George. The matchup against Boston is fine. I think that Kyrie is a very good option. It's just, I wouldn't, if I'm playing a lot of lineups, I wouldn't feel comfortable just like jamming Kyrie in and not getting to Tatum and not getting to George or something. But I do think that if I only have to pick one and ownership is about the same, I would lean Kyrie over Tatum, and it's really close with George, I think.
The rest of Brooklyn now, do they still only have 9 players today?
They have, I think, so Mike James is available to make his debut, but Alize Johnson's out. So they have Kyrie, they have Harris, they have Shamet, Brown, Griffin, Jordan, Green, TLC, and James. So yeah, they have 9 players.
Okay. Yeah. So no Johnson, no Durant, no Claxton. Well, both Johnson. Tyler Johnson is also out for this.
Actually, Reggie Perry is not on the injury report, so they have 10.
Yeah, they have 10. Right.
Yeah.
I couldn't find James on any of the other depth charts, but I remember us talking about it the other day that they were signing him today. So figure we had at least 9, maybe 10. Do you get to anyone not named Kyrie Irving tonight?
I think so. DeAndre Jordan started 2 games ago, played 33.5 minutes. He came off the bench and played about 28.5 minutes last game, played the entire fourth quarter. I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in the starting lineup tonight against Tristan Thompson. Just, from a size standpoint, it makes some sense. If he starts, I think that you can pencil him in for 28 to 30 minutes, and at 3,900 on DraftKings, that is a good value. Again, there's a ton of good value at center today, but Jordan would definitely be one of them. If Jordan comes off the bench, it becomes a lot riskier. Like, there's no guarantee he plays the entire fourth quarter again and gets to 28 minutes. There's a chance he would just play 22 or 24 minutes or something like that, because Blake Griffin started and only played about 19 minutes in that game. So it would be really risky if he comes off the bench. And then Griffin's expensive enough where he would just look like a secondary option to me, although he has been very productive without Durant or Harden, but still would just kind of look like a secondary option. So Irving, clearly the priority. I like Jordan if he starts. And then you're just looking at secondary guys, like Blake Griffin, like Jeff Green. On FanDuel, you have Joe Harris at 5,300 at small forward. I think that's a pretty good option. He's more expensive on DraftKings, but again, it's just, you have to roster 2 small forwards. It's not a very good position, and Harris is cheaper on FanDuel, so I think he's a pretty good play there.
What about Landry Shamet playing a ton of minutes? He's shooting a lot, 3 for 17 last game, but he got up a ton of shots, 12 of them 3-pointers, also had 5 fouls on the night. 4,700. He's getting a little bit of love on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think he's just one of those guys that, like, he'll land in some lineups because of how many minutes he's going to play. He's got a 20% usage rate with Irving on the floor and with the other guys off. Like you said, he's getting shots up, but he's not going to do a lot in the way of peripherals. And he's at a price point where it's difficult to envision him putting up a score that you have to have at 4,700. It's a lot easier to see him put up a score that hurts you. So it's just sort of, I'm sure there will be some lineups where you have everybody you want. You have 4,700 left. You kind of just bite the bullet and put Landry Shamet in and hope he shoots well. But I don't think there's a ton of value at that price point.
All right, then let's keep going here. We got 5 to go. Those first 2 games are pretty intense, just given all of the injury news. Cleveland and Charlotte, probably not so much. Cleveland Cavs are 1-point dogs, 210.5 total. Taurean Prince is done for the season. That's all we've got, really, from either side of this game. Malik Monk remains sidelined. He's going to miss his 12th or 13th game tonight. But that's the only news we have. Nothing is really going to pop from either side of this game. It has the lowest total on the slate at 210.5. So if you're looking at either side of this one, you're probably going to be digging pretty deep to get anything you feel great about.
Yeah, it's just 2 teams that I think are pretty much correctly priced. I mean, I'm not going to – we've said it, I think, probably 3 or 4 games in a row now for Cleveland, where Sexton, Love, Garland, Allen, there's nothing wrong with rostering any of these guys. We know that they're capable of putting up big games, but they're just priced where they should be for this team to be fully healthy. Like, you're probably getting around 28 minutes from Love. You're getting 34 to 36 from Garland and Sexton. So they have potential. It's just that there's a lot of plays that are clearly underpriced, and it's not Cleveland because, with the exception of Prince, they are healthy, and Prince doesn't really make that much of an impact on anyone's minutes.
Tyler Hero is active today for whatever that's worth. Does Charlotte stand out to you in any capacity?
Not really, because they've been playing for a while now without Hayward and without LaMelo. So you've seen Terry Rozier on DraftKings go up to $8,700. That's an extremely expensive price tag. Granted, he is playing huge minutes. He's only 8,100 on FanDuel, so looks a little bit better there. Playing huge minutes, has about a 25% usage rate, about a 26% assist percentage without LaMelo and without Hayward. So he's been productive, and playing big minutes. But, again, it's just so difficult to prioritize him at that price point. And then you look to the other guys on Charlotte, you still got Vernon Carey playing in the teens. PJ Washington coming off the bench only played 13 minutes yesterday after playing 32 and 35 in his previous couple of games. So very, very risky option there. And he's not exactly cheap. There's just not much that stands out to me at all in this game. Devontae Graham, I guess, is worth a mention on FanDuel because he's 6K, whereas he's 63 or 6,500 on DraftKings. But, even that, it's more of just a secondary option at shooting guard.
All right. So any options that you're considering from this game, since we really only touched on it briefly, are who?
Considering as in wouldn't be surprised if they got into some lineups.
Right, but not actively targeting.
Yeah. Rozier and Graham from the Charlotte side, and then any of the main four guys from Cleveland. Right. Love Garland, Sexton, Allen.
Then let's move it on to a couple of other spots that make for some interesting games. The Clippers, it's hard to say because these salaries have bounced around a whole lot with Kawhi Leonard being sidelined quite often. The ownership coming in on them is pretty insignificant outside of Paul George. And I think that's probably what all of us would have expected because, Adam, at least when you look on DraftKings, and I can speak specifically for DraftKings here, we'll get to FanDuel where it's really similar. So I guess I can speak for both of them. Most of the prices have come up to reflect Kawhi Leonard's absence, to reflect him being out. But for some reason, Paul George kind of hasn't come up to reflect that, even though he's playing out of his mind right now. That's a little bit surprising, no?
Yeah, it is. And now you get this matchup against Houston where, there's blowout risk. But other than that, it's a fantastic matchup. One of the fastest teams in the league, one of the worst defenses. George, going back to last year, has a 36% usage rate in the games he's played without Kawhi. This year, it's even it's north of that, up at 37.5% in those games. Overall, he's played 635 minutes without Kawhi on the floor this year, 34.7% usage rate, 1.37 DraftKings points per minute. And, like I said, he's produced even better in the games where Kawhi's just been completely out. So, playing big minutes, relatively inexpensive. I really have nothing negative to say about Paul George here.
I got 33,000 Xavier Tillman.
There you go.
12,900 Danilo Gallinari, and 3,800 Gordon Hayward.
I haven't opened mine yet. I'll sell it to you for $100 since you're just
Oh, actually, my Xavier Tillman has 2 badges. That's cool.
That's not bad.
I mean, it's not great either.
Yeah. So it's a rookie, right?
Yeah, it's his first game and his first moment. So it could be worse, right?
Yeah.
Could be a lot better though.
It could be a lot better.
Could be a lot better. Do you want to hit on anything else from the Clippers? I'm assuming there's a couple things you're at least willing to maybe get to. At least Visa Zubac's in the play. Marcus Morris. Anybody here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, George is the one that stands out. Zubac's, I think, is underpriced. He's a fantasy point per minute guy that on average is going to give you about 28 minutes per game, has the potential to play a little bit more, in competitive games, but he's been averaging about 28 minutes in his starts. If you didn't have Nurkic on this slate and then now potentially Okongwu, Zubac's, I think, would look like one of the best center options. So I still have interest in him in tournaments, even though I do think he falls behind some of these other guys that happen to also be on the slate. But he is a productive player. He is cheap. He is in a good spot. And then you can also look to Morris. You can look to Reggie Jackson. Jackson sat out the last game, but I would expect that he gets around 30 minutes tonight. He's, not the best player, but he's around 9/10 or so fantasy points per minute, and he's relatively inexpensive. So he's someone you can use at relatively low ownership in tournaments. Marcus Morris, I think, will be a little bit easier to get to on FanDuel at 5,700 than he will on DraftKings at 6,100, but he's averaged a fantasy point per minute in the games without Kawhi and with George. You should get 30 to 32 minutes from him if this game's competitive. So no issues with Morris either.
Who wants a Gordon Hayward top shot? It's serial code 3000. Not bad. I give you 15 seconds to drop your top shot username in there. I'll pick one of them within the next 15 seconds and send it over to you during the show. Assuming they're still letting you gift, Adam. I'm not sure if that's the case.
I have no idea.
Houston, Kevin Porter's out. Eric Gordon's not back yet. Daniel House, Jr. is expected back today. They're huge dogs, 10-point dogs at home, 223.5 total. Do you find anything here that jumps off the page as a must play, or are there just some decent options? I've seen Armani Brooks' name been thrown around a little bit. He's pretty cheap. I don't know how much that changes with the Clint Capella news, just not given the position, but given the fact that we have another value option that people are going to flock to. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, definitely wouldn't say anyone that like you have to play, but I do think there's a couple options that look somewhat interesting. John Wall being the first one. I mean, 7,500 on DraftKings, 7,800 on FanDuel. I think it's a really favorable price tag. Yeah, the Clippers are better than Houston, no doubt about it, but they are missing Pat Beverly. They are missing Kawhi Leonard. And you also, with Kevin Porter being out, you see a bump in usage for Wall. You see an increase in his assist percentage. He's played 12 games this year with Christian Wood active and without any of Harden, Oladipo, or Porter. He's got a 34% usage rate and almost a 40% assist percentage. He's averaged 1.21 DraftKings points per minute. And while he's only averaging about 32 minutes per game over the last month, that's because Houston is out of so many games by the start of the fourth quarter. In games that Houston is competitive in, you're getting 35, 36 minutes from Wall pretty regularly. So I think that basically the blowout risk is baked into Wall's price. If Houston were consistently giving John Wall 35, 36 minutes in competitive, or if they were consistently playing competitive games that allowed John Wall to get 35, 36 minutes, this guy would be $8,500. So I think there is a very, very high ceiling for him. There's also, of course, risk because he's on a terrible team, but the ceiling I think is really high. Kelly Olynyk has produced at a pretty high rate since going to Houston. He's 6,800 on DraftKings at center, which I think is very, very difficult to get to. But on FanDuel, he's also at center, but he's only $5,200, which is, I think, a misprice. Anytime you're getting someone $1,600 less expensive on FanDuel than DraftKings, there's some value there. So those are the two that stand out. You mentioned Armani Brooks. He started last game, played about 34 minutes. I don't think he gets that many minutes again. He played the entire fourth quarter in garbage time, played about 13 minutes in the first half, but I still would anticipate you're getting upper 20s, low 30s from him. At 3,600 on DraftKings, I think he's fine. 4,200 on FanDuel, I'm not quite as excited. Not that I'm excited on DraftKings either. And also, make sure he's in the starting lineup. If he gets replaced by Avery Bradley or Daniel House joins the starting lineup, then just get off of Brooks, I think.
Okay. B. Higney, 1986. Wouldn't let me send the Hayward. Apparently you have to have it for 7 days. So I sent you a limited edition Nikola Vucevic instead. So you got it, fella. I'm looking at the rest of Houston and the rest of the Clippers, and I don't really see a ton. I think you covered everything because that's what you do. You're pretty comprehensive in your analysis. And if you haven't read the deep dive, if you're not making that a foundational piece of your research each day, you should be. It's totally free at awesemo.com, right on the homepage. The deep dive. Adam writes it most days of the week. You wrote it today. Is there anything else from that you want to convey on the show right now from this game, or should we talk Washington OKC?
No, I think we can go on to the next one. I would say the priorities here are Paul George, and then I think Wall's a very good play, especially in tournaments. I like Olynyk on FanDuel, and then I'm happy really getting to whatever other Clippers, whether it's Zubats, Morris, Reggie Jackson, even Nick Batum, I think offers a little bit of value, but he gets downgraded pretty quickly as more stuff opens up.
All right. Let's talk about Washington then. Yeah, Josh and I talked about it a lot this morning with Russell Westbrook and the shooting recently, but I'm not concerned about the shooting because this is the type of guy that even if he only shoots 20% from the field, can still give you 70 fantasy points. Like, how many guys are capable of doing that? Not many of them. And if you look at his drives per game over that stretch, he's still averaging almost 18 drives per game. Those are solid. He's averaging 18 drives per game on the season. As you mentioned, over the last, I think, month, he's top 3 in rebounds per game. Even with Bradley Beal on the court, he's still been a 1.6 plus DraftKings points per minute guy since the start of March. I could rattle off a million different stats and a million different reasons why Russell Westbrook at 11K is still probably the most, this might sound extreme, Adam, so feel free to tell me if I'm wrong. He feels like, even at this price point, the most safest fantasy option out there at the current time.
Yeah, he does to me too. I mean, you mentioned shooting struggles, but the thing is, like, Westbrook doesn't need to be a good shooter to pick up fantasy points.
Look at his fantasy totals in those games where he shot like shit.
Right. If you get a game where Westbrook is actually making shots, he gets 75 fantasy points. When you get games where he shoots, when you get games where he shoots like normal, which is dog shit, he still gets like 60 plus fantasy points. The rebounding numbers are just insane. He's now tied with Rudy Gobert over the last month for second in the NBA in total rebounds per game. The only player in the entire league averaging more rebounds per game than the Wizards point guard is Clint Capella. Like, it's insane. He's averaging the third most minutes per game over the last month. And now you get this OKC team that is terrible and playing at the third fastest pace over the last month. So you have two top 3 teams in pace. You have an OKC team that can't defend, especially if Lou Dort is out. And I would assume Dort spends more time dealing with Bradley Beal than Westbrook anyway. So yeah, I have nothing negative to say about Westbrook. I mean, at this point, like, I know that the sites don't really go above 11K, but they kind of need to on Westbrook because the guy's just 50% owned every slate, and there's nothing you can do about it because you're either going to just have to play the 50% owned 11K guy, or you're putting yourself in a 60 plus fantasy point hole.
Right. I don't really see any argument against it, quite honestly. And even playing alongside Bradley Beal, Russell Westbrook has still been absolutely dominant. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Josh this morning. Who would you rather have in the first round of the playoffs? Would you rather have Russell Westbrook or Mike Conley?
It really depends on the team, I think, but like on the Wizards, I would rather have Wizards. I would rather have Westbrook.
Would you rather have Westbrook or Goran Dragic?
Westbrook.
Okay, he went Goran Dragic. Would you rather have Westbrook or Eric Bledsoe?
Westbrook on the Wizards.
Right.
On the Bucks, now he's on the Pelicans, but like on the Bucks, I would rather have Bledsoe.
Okay. Who would you rather have on the Jazz? Mike Conley or Bledsoe? Or Westbrook? Conley. Okay. Would you rather have Ben Simmons or Westbrook on any team?
Simmons for the defense, I guess.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? All right. The Wizards outside of Westbrook. Well, do you want to talk about Beal at all? It feels kind of difficult. Actually, it seems really tough to get to him in some spots tonight.
Yeah, I think it's a much better FanDuel play than DraftKings. DraftKings, you can certainly see the merit in tournaments. Like, you're going to get so much ownership going to Westbrook. Beal's not going to come close to that. So, you can always make the argument, to go to Beal, especially he has small forward eligibility on DraftKings now, which is pretty nice. So you can roster him at 5 different lineup spots, but 9K on FanDuel at shooting guard, I think, is where he really stands out. He's played at least 35 minutes in 6 straight games now. So we're not really concerned about playing time issues from the hip injury anymore. He's back to shooting a ton. He's playing relatively well. For the season, he's averaged about 1.3 DraftKings points per minute in his games with Westbrook. I would expect that you see similar production here. I do think, we say a lot that individual defensive matchups aren't a big deal for DFS. Like, other stuff is more important. But I do think it's an upgrade for Beal if Lou Dort gets ruled out of this game as well.
Sure. He's a scrappy defender. There's no doubt about it. A lot of questions coming in on Davis Bertans. He's getting 20+% ownership. Can you get there? Do you want to target him today?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't feel great because he's a scoring dependent player that doesn't shoot that much. Like, he's going to take a lot of threes, and if he makes them, you're good. The thing is, though, he played 30 minutes last game, which is the most minutes he's played in about 2 months. And then now you have Avdia joining Rui Hachimura on the sidelines. I assume Davis Bertans starts this game. Even if he doesn't start, I would expect him to be in the closing lineup. And so I'm thinking that you get another 30 minutes or so from him. Even though he has struggled this year, he's really had trouble getting into a rhythm. He's dealt with a bunch of injuries, conditioning issues, and you've just never really seen him be the player he was the last couple of years. But he's still averaging 0.8 DraftKings points per minute, which, if you're going to get 30 minutes from him in a fast-paced game at 4,300 on DraftKings, that's still it's still a perfectly fine value. So yeah, no problems with Bertans. And then Raul Neto, 3,400 on DraftKings, 3,600 on FanDuel. He's played 28 and 36 minutes in his starts the last 2 games. He's only averaged about 0.6 of a fantasy point per minute when he has played with Westbrook and Beal both on the floor this year. Most of his minutes will be under those circumstances tonight. Nearly 100% will be with Beal, and then most will be with both of them. So keep your expectations in check as far as how well Neto produces on a per minute basis. But if you're getting 30 plus minutes from him in a game, with a massive total, I think he's obviously one of the best point per dollar values that you can find.
And granted, he's only played like 150 minutes with both of them this season. So
yeah. So you could definitely see that the rate come up, but it also makes sense that, he's not going to get as many assists playing with Westbrook. He's not going to shoot. So
he's going to be hanging around quite a bit. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. He's a good enough basketball player though, that like getting 30 minutes from him at this price tag, he's going to do something. He's going to play well enough most of the time that, you're happy you rostered him.
Well, he's a 0.82 fantasy point per minute guy in the season, and he should play 30 plus minutes. He played 36 yesterday, as you pointed out. You could definitely do worse than that. I think we could agree on this, whether or not we like him playing all of his minutes alongside one of Beal and Westbrook and plenty of them alongside both of them in the starting lineup. At least you could say that Raul Neto is too cheap and cheaper than he should be, because the guys that are priced around him are playing like 8 minutes a game.
Yeah, exactly. And especially like on FanDuel, it stands out because Brandon Goodwin's priced up to $5K. Neto is still sitting at $3,600. So you don't even get Brandon Goodwin in that price range on FanDuel. Right,
exactly. All right, anything else from Washington, or you want to hit on Westbrook's former team, the Oklahoma City Thunder?
Yeah, I have to make my obligatory Daniel Gafford mention. He played 24 minutes last game. Who knows if that's a sign of things to come? Hopefully it is. I really want this guy to play more minutes. But he's still averaging 1.4 DraftKings points per minute since joining Washington. For his career, he's about a fantasy point per minute guy. So I don't think he continues producing 1.4, but I do think you get the most productive Daniel Gafford playing with Westbrook, playing on this Washington team. So I think, at 3,800 on DraftKings, there's a lot of cheap centers that look good. It should make Gafford not very popular. He is someone that, again, you can just look to it low ownership in tournaments because assuming he is low owned, because he's got a ridiculously high ceiling for the price point.
Lou Dort's questionable for the Oklahoma City Thunder. This game also has a 231.5 total. It is one of the highest on the slate. It's actually approaching that Memphis Portland total as well. He's questionable. Other than that, SGA out, Horford's like not playing ever again for the Thunder. So we know exactly, we know pretty much what we should be expecting if Lou Dort is in. Does that put anyone on the map for you today against a Washington team that plays at the fastest pace in the league? I mean, you're talking about a lightning fast pace, bottom 5 defensive team on the season. They've played a little bit better over the past month, but still they make for a pretty good matchup for whoever their opponent is, even if the Thunder are so bad that the Wizards are double-digit favorites on the road.
Yeah, pretty impressive there. Dort's the one that I think is the most interesting, especially on FanDuel. He's 5,700 at small forward. He'd be one of my favorite small forward options if he's able to play. He's averaged about 30 minutes per game without SGA this year in 13 games, 27.5% usage rate, over a fantasy point per minute. And then, now you get this, not only do you get a fast-paced Washington team, although Washington has defended very well recently, still, not something that you really expect to continue, but you're also talking about Westbrook being the most turnover-prone guard in the league. So you're probably going to get some defensive stats for Lou Dort as well. So I think he would look really good. If he's out, it bumps Teo Maledon, who gets more usage. It also could bump Isaiah Roby, who played 27.8 minutes without him last game. Some of that, I think, was because Moses Brown was limited, not by foul trouble, just didn't really play a whole lot. But still, if like Isaiah Roby's 4K on FanDuel, he's 4,300 on DraftKings in a good spot here. If you suddenly can get 25, 26 minutes from Roby, he's going to look pretty good.
All right. We've got 3 games to go and not a ton. There's no way. I'm sorry. We only got 2 games to go, so we're making good time here.
Yeah. I forgot. Sorry, I forgot to. Svi Mikhailuk started last game in place of Dort. Played 36 minutes. He's 3,800 on DraftKings. He'd be another good value if Dort is out.
Any interest in the pogo stick?
No.
Okay. I just like the name. Yeah. One of our own, one of our subs or one of our viewers brought that up, and Josh and I have liked it ever since. Chris, let's take a look at Hall of Fame so I can brag about one of our subs taking down another $100,000. Neil Arfield, I swear, every time I look, it's him or Gene or Rinpak or Alex. It's really incredible. $100,000. Neil Arfield, he's the Millie Maker winner from last year for the NFL season. This is from 2 days ago, right? He says, I have to give a lot of credit to the projections at Awesemo.com for this one. I didn't have a ton of Bazemore, but I was more than 3x the field without touching the projection, and he made it into the one that mattered. 100K up top. To Neil Arfield, congrats, brother. That's from 2 days ago. Yesterday, he won $50,000 on FanDuel with the Awesemo avatar and $13,000 on DraftKings, coming in 4th place or something like that. And then you have Bluegrass Judas, 150. Huge field here, $150. Congrats to you. Awesemo equals money bags, he says. And if you're wondering how these get up here, if you're wondering what this is, very simple. It's the Hall of Fame. You download the avatar, go to awesemo.com/avatar. And if you finish top 3 in a contest of 5,000 people or more, you get a free month of Awesemo Platinum, Awesemo Plus Platinum. Every single thing on the site goes to you for free for the entire month. Just tweet your wins at Awesemo Hall of Fame with the Awesemo avatar. You can't doctor it, though. It has to look like that, and you win a free month. So bing, bang, boom, make it happen. Ben P., another one. Best ROI of the season. Thanks, Awesemo, and everybody else. And Rinpack, amazingly, doesn't have an Awesemo logo on YouTube, on Yahoo. So disappointing stuff, but Rinpack's up there as well. Congrats to everyone. Go to awesemo.com/join, too, if you want to check out the tools and you aren't trying to chase down a tournament until you can get your free month. All right, so we've got Denver and Golden State here. Oh, I did not do that intentionally. Thank you, Chris. Adam Scherer says, yo, Awesemo Hall of Fame. Can I have a hoodie or a hat or something now? Turning 2K into 16,000. Nice work, dude.
Nice.
You were waiting for one of those tweets, weren't you?
Yeah, well.
I thought so.
That was incidental. Just to get one.
I did not KD snub Westbrook you at all. That was totally incidental. But nice work to everyone. Get your name up there. Download the avatar. We'd love to brag for you and show these off. And, it's fun stuff doing the Awesemo Hall of Fame. We've had a lot of fun with it over the past couple of weeks. And every single night we've got brand new screenshots, brand new tweets, handfuls of them. Can't even use all of them. So let's hope the streak keeps going and more people come join the family, join the community over at Awesemo. Golden State and Denver. Denver Nuggets are, what do we got? 2.5-point favorites, 227.5 total. Bazemore's out. Damian Lee's out. Eric Pascal's out. Juan Toscano-Anderson's questionable. I don't really know how big of a difference this makes, but is there enough room for anyone to jump bigger into the rotation if Toscano-Anderson also sits? Does that open up enough minutes for one of these role players?
I think you could see Jordan Poole become interesting if Toscano-Anderson sits.
Okay. So all of them would have to be out though, right? Like he would have to sit too.
Yeah. I mean, so it's always tough with the Warriors because Steve Kerr just kind of does whatever the hell he wants, like at the drop of a hat. But Poole played 25 minutes against the Wizards last game, and that was with Bazemore playing 35.2 minutes and with Oubre playing 36.6. So, like, you're taking Bazemore out now. Oubre's not playing more than 36.5 minutes, or if he is, it's not by much. So those 35 minutes have to be soaked up somewhere. If Toscano-Anderson comes back, he's getting some of them, probably not all of them, but he'll get some of them. And then I just think, you could see Mulder play a little bit. You could see Peyton play a little bit. But I think that there's a good chance Jordan Poole gets mid-20s in minutes again. And if Toscano-Anderson's out, you could potentially see even more from Poole.
Okay. Is there any interest in Steph Curry today? I know it's difficult to get there, and I'm going out of order here, going with the home team first. I usually don't do that. It's kind of difficult when you're lumping him in with Jokic and Westbrook and even Tatum without Kemba, Jaylen Brown, and Kyrie Irving without Harden and Durant. It feels a little bit difficult to get there against a Denver team that's been playing pretty solid defense lately. Is there tournament value to Curry tonight?
It would. If I go there, I think it's purely an ownership play because he doesn't project as well as Westbrook. Like he doesn't project anywhere close to as well as Westbrook. No. He projects similarly to guys like Tatum and George and Kyrie and all those guys. But we've talked about it before that Curry doesn't offer the same peripherals as most guys at 10K or north of 10K. So it makes it really, really tough to prioritize him, but he does still come with that massive ceiling because he's the best he's the best shooter ever, or one of the best shooters ever. And he's capable of just going out there and knocking down 10 threes in any given game. So whenever you're going to get Steph Curry at low ownership, there is some tournament appeal, but there's just so many good plays tonight. And then also Curry's name value, like you rarely get him at actual 2% ownership or something. Like people still just play Steph Curry. It's not a great matchup against Denver, who I believe has played at the third or fourth slowest pace over the last month. So yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to talk anyone off of Steph Curry. If you like your lineup and he's in it, it's fine. But to me, I would feel better about getting to just about every other 10K guy.
So PJ Washington's back in the starting lineup now after playing only 13 minutes yesterday.
Okay, so I mean that actually makes him kind of interesting because I Don't know what it means for. I assume Vernon Carey is going to just play like 12 minutes off the bench or something. I don't know. Borrego's talked about needing to get Vernon Carey minutes and all that, and then he takes him out of the lineup. So I would assume you're getting 30 to 33 minutes from PJ Washington, which, at center is productive. It's still not a very appealing game, but it does make PJ Washington look a lot better than he did if he was coming off the bench.
It's kind of weird, though, how Borrego has just tweaked his minutes all over the place, and you have no idea what to expect from him.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else from the Golden State Warriors?
Yeah, Oubre's 5,800 on DraftKings. I think that's kind of appealing. It's not as important, obviously, since you have roster flexibility, but assuming you're going to get 34 to 36 minutes from Oubre, he's averaged about 0.9 of a fantasy point per minute this year. I think there's a little bit of value there. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot here. It's, Draymond produces at a higher rate as well. We've talked about that a lot without Weissman, but he's priced up a bit. The matchup's not great. Just, kind of secondary options, I think.
Let's talk about the Nuggets. Nikola Vucevic has played 689 minutes without Jamal Murray this year, 34.6% usage rate, an assist rate of 46.8%, which is just preposterous. 17.3% rebound rate, 1.68 DraftKings points per minute. That is the elite of the elite. Those are Giannis Antetokounmpo type numbers, as good as it gets. I know he's had a couple underwhelming games of late, but still you see that ceiling. He's got the 80-point upside. Very few players, even in his price range, are capable of doing what he's doing because he adds so many peripherals to the table, Adam, and that's why we love Nikola Jokic. He doesn't need to score 30 points in order to give you 70, and we've seen him do it on multiple occasions. So $10,900 on DraftKings, to $11,300 on FanDuel.
Yeah, love Jokic. I have nothing negative to say about him. The rates go up, without Murray. He's played 10 games without him now, 1.8 DraftKings points per minute. The only thing, so I think basically it's Jokic and Westbrook at the top for me. The only reason I say Westbrook, I would expect to have more Westbrook than Jokic, is just the position. At center today, you have, potentially DeAndre Jordan, you have potentially Okongwu, you have Zubats, you have, Nurkic. Like you have so many centers that you can pay down for. I think it's going to be a little bit easier to get to Westbrook, but that's the only real knock I have on Jokic here. He's averaged, I went back through the 10 games he's played without Murray. He's averaging about 2 more potential assists per 36 minutes. And that's including over the last 3 games, his potential assists have actually been down. He's only averaged about 10.3. So, I think overall you're seeing you have the higher assist percentage, like you said. It's backed up by the numbers when you go back through the games Murray hasn't played. Usage is up at 31%. Golden State's a nice pace up spot for Denver. There's really nothing bad to say about Jokic.
Cuz Campbell, thank you for the super chat. You didn't need the super chat for that, man. Just send me a DM or something if in Slack if you're a sub or on Twitter. We'll get that taken care of. But thank you. I'll send that over to someone that can fix that up. Outside of Jokic, though, I feel like it gets a little bit uglier. There's not a whole lot here. Barton, Dozier, Porter, all of them pulling a little bit of ownership today in the low double digits. Do you want to get to these guys outside of Jokic?
I wouldn't use the word want. I would say that I can see like why they're going to end up in some lineups. They're just sort of at price points and positions that are useful. I don't really like Michael Porter Jr.'s $7,700 price tag or $7,400 on FanDuel, but he's a small forward at a pretty weak position. It is a pace up spot. You're probably getting around 33 minutes from Porter. He's averaged over a fantasy point per minute without Murray. So, I think he's fine. Not somebody that I really love. Barton's probably playing 33, 34 minutes. Aaron Gordon hasn't been very productive in Denver, but I think he's kind of just priced to his floor where at the very least, there's a lot of upside at this price point because we know how talented Aaron Gordon is. We know all the stuff he can do from a fantasy standpoint. So, kind of interesting in tournaments, even though you're probably only getting 28 to 30 minutes from him. PJ Dozier, even JaMychal Green, I wrote about in the deep dive. JaMychal Green's probably playing about 18 minutes, but like 2/3 of his minutes will come without Jokic on the floor, where he's been about a 1.15 fantasy point per minute guy. It's not a priority, but it is the kind of guy where playing tournament lineups, he should be pretty low owned and he'll let you get some other stuff into your lineup. So outside of Jokic, no priorities for me from Denver, but I would expect to just kind of be getting exposure to pretty much all the other relevant pieces.
Smash that thumbs up one more time. Hit that subscribe button as well and the notification bell if you want to know when all of these shows drop. That is coming up. Live Before Lock coming up immediately after us. We've got one more game to tackle here. It's Memphis and Portland, the highest total on the slate, 232.5. Grizzlies 3.5 point dogs on the road. No Jonas Valanciunas, is going to be an interesting spot here, but it'd be a lot more interesting if you didn't see 1,800 players in this rotation, if Jaren Jackson wasn't back in the rotation. Sometimes it kind of feels like a wasted opportunity, Adam, when you have such a good player that is out and not a whole lot of spots to turn to. But Ja Morant, with him off the floor this season, has been a 1.2 fantasy point per minute producer. Not bad numbers by any stretch, 30% usage rate. I think that's probably what you would expect from him. What do you think about Ja Morant and the rest of the Grizzlies? We don't have much time here, so if you don't have a ton, just hit on the guys you like, if any.
Yeah, I mean, I think Morant's fine. He's similar to John Wall. I would put him slightly behind Wall, but he is a little bit less expensive. Portland struggles defensively, but also doesn't play at a particularly fast pace. Slight bump in usage rate, slight bump in assist percentage without Valanciunas. But like you said, it's more of, I think the ceiling's a bit higher, not having to share the ball with Valanciunas, but on average, it's pretty similar production for Morant. Xavier Tillman is fine, but not something I'm prioritizing here just because there are so many other good center options. He played 28 minutes last game, but I'm a little concerned because, you got 18 minutes from Jackson, you have Brandon Clark healthy. There's a lot of front court bodies now that potentially could take minutes away from him. But, even with Valanciunas out, it's just really tough to prioritize anything from this team.
Rajon Rondo out for the Clippers. Any impact for you?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess you can give a couple more minutes to Reggie Jackson, makes him look a little bit better.
Okay. Then I say we close this one out if you're ready to do that with Portland.
Yeah.
All right. So the Portland Trail Blazers at home should be a competitive, fast-paced game. Definitely looking at Yusuf Nurkic here, who is expensive, understandably so, and hasn't played too well of late, Adam. But my one argument for him, not expensive, high owned. The one argument for Nurkic is, despite him playing less than stellar recently, he's still almost a 1.2 DraftKings point per minute player. And he does have a much higher ceiling than anybody's giving him credit for. I'm not saying Lou Dort is active and will start.
Good.
I'm not saying you have to get there in all spots, but I don't think $5,200 Nurkic is the worst chalk you could eat with a big center who doesn't have to go up against Joval, is going to be seeing Brandon Clark and some Jaren Jackson against Memphis. It could actually be a really nice night for him.
Yeah, and I mean, the big thing here is that in his last game, Nurkic played the most minutes he's played since January
29
13th.
minutes, yeah.
Yeah. You had stats before that game saying Nurkic would be limited to minutes in the upper 20s, which I think everyone kind of looked at and said, wait, like, he hasn't been playing that. Like, he was coming off a game he missed, and then he comes back and plays more minutes. But yeah, he's priced to play 22 to 24 minutes. You're assuming you're going to get 28, 29. He's played 20 games with McCollum and Lillard active this year, 1.17 DraftKings points per minute. He's just mispriced. I think he's chalk for a reason, and he's a very good play.
All right, round this out for us. We got to go. Anything else for Portland before we turn it over to Greg and Eric?
No, I mean, Nurkic is all that stands out to me. Obviously Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are both good and both more than capable of having monster games, but Nurkic is all that I see as far as anything that I feel good about.
All right, great stuff. That'll do it for us today. All of our free premium content and free premium tools on the site today. You can go check that out right now. Ownership projections are free. Top pitchers tool for baseball is free. NHL ownership and MMA fighter rankings, all free today. All of these premium tools. Get a peek behind the curtain. See if you like them or not. I think you certainly will. And we'll see you back here on Monday. Adam, you'll be back here tomorrow, right? On the Deeper Dive?
Strategy show in the morning.
Strategy show in the morning. There will be a Deeper Dive there. Live before lock up next. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll see you back here soon.
Can we discuss Tyler?
What did he get a haircut too?
No, he has no power, and we cut the MLB Live before lock off like 5 minutes early because I don't know. Texas doesn't have power, apparently.
Yeah. Oh, no one man should have all that power. I mean, it was Tyler was a little bit. He was getting a little too strong anyway. We need to get Chris some more reps.
This is a fact. Yeah, Chris has no experience whatsoever. That's what it is. Oh my God, I cannot wait. YouTube chat, get ready for the big reveal.
I mean, this is remember back in the day when Jordan just did shows starting at 6 a.m. all the way until lock 7 days a week? Now look at him with the day. Look at him with 1 or 2 days off a week now. What a come up.
Must be nice. Big Chalk Lindquist. What up, fam? It me.
I was gonna call you whatever the name we learned yesterday, but I already forgot.
What did I say? I said Chalk Master Flex.
No. The other one that Gene said, the specific type of chalk.
Oh, it was a Japanese name. It sounded like, what was it? I'm gonna look it up. It's got to be in my history. Hagoromo chalk.
Hagoromo chalk, Eric. Okay.
Love it. They are so mean to me, Rishi, aren't they? Oh, Arcathelza has no idea. Prepare thyself. Eddie Steinfeld, chocolatier. That's a good one. Sounds like I like chocolate milk though. It's different.
Trying to think of puns with your name, but it's kind of hard. Alexei Bogachaksky.
These are so good. You guys are pretty creative today. I'm not even gonna lie. It's too easy, Eric. Yeah, well, because I let you. How about that? Chalk. I should probably stop.
It is the Awesemo NBA Live Before Lock show. We're heading into the weekend, but not before my buddy Eric Lindquist and I break down, talk about another NBA DFS slate here. And last night's slate was a pretty interesting one. I think, by and large, the Awesemo community did pretty well. I saw a whole bunch of guys tag me in screenshots earlier today, so that's cool. Maybe a few new inductees into the Awesemo Hall of Fame, which is something new we're running. So, well, not really new, but pushing a little bit harder lately. But if you guys want to get into the Awesemo Hall of Fame, you have a good night, win some money playing DFS at me, at Eric, at Laffy, maybe Josh, but really focus on adding Eric and I, and of course, at Awesemo Hall of Fame on Twitter and get inducted into the Hall of Fame yourself. But hey, Eric, how you doing today?
This is disappointing. They're liking your haircut. This is not what I was going for. I wanted to have some kind of an odds and ends thing. It seems as though everybody's like, hey, nice cut, Greg. Nice job, Greg. If I got a haircut like this, I cannot imagine the vitriol that would be coming my way.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't really sure if I was going to get a haircut. Not a lot of thought I got into this.
I do think it looks nice. I got to let it be known.
It's and then I showed up to I have some family stuff to do this weekend. So I feel like, unless I want to hear from my parents who are coming back from Florida, and I got my sister coming back from college, unless I just want to hear a million questions from my parents about why my hair is so long, I figured I might as well get my hair cut. But the other thing too is then it's I wasn't sure if I actually wanted to get done on it. As soon as I walk into the barber shop, the first thing the barber says, oh, if I had your hair, I wouldn't get it cut. He was like, it looks cool long like that. You should grow it out more. And I was like, oh man.
Well, I was going to say your hair was long. How about what does that make Spags' hair? Spags' hair is like a mane comparatively.
Yeah, but he also wears a hat, so I don't think people see it anyway. But whatever. Let's talk about the NBA slate. I don't think people care that much about my hair. There's always a couple of people that are going to care, but by and large, people aren't going to care. But you know what they are going to care about? The Atlanta Hawks and whatever the hell they're going to do with their rotation today. So let's start with Atlanta, starting with Brandon Goodwin, who vastly different play on DraftKings and FanDuel today. One of the top value plays on DraftKings, FanDuel priced appropriately. But how much Brandon Goodwin do you want to get to on DraftKings?
Oh, gee. Well, somebody just said to kill a chalking bird, and that just killed me a little bit. Yeah, I love chalk. Therefore, I love Brandon Goodwin. Actually, for the most part, on FanDuel, I am below the field on him. So, to all of you. 5K, a little bit less there. 3,400. I do prioritize him a little bit more than like a Raul Neto at the exact same price tag, but hard to get away from playing him today on this slate. We saw 37 minutes back-to-back games for him on the 11th and 13th of April when you didn't have Trae Young on the floor. That's a big deal. That's a lot of minutes, a lot of production that's hard to replicate anywhere else on this slate. Point guard, if you're not like, obviously we have Russell Westbrook up top. But outside of him, I think that I want to go kind of spend up for Jokic, spend up at some other positions. So taking some punts at point guard isn't too shabby on this slate.
Yeah, so for me, and still, we need to get an update on Danilo Gallinari. Here's what I expect the starting lineup to be for the Atlanta Hawks. Just my best guess right now. And I'm assuming as of now that Danilo Gallinari is going to be in. And with that in mind, I expect it's going to be Brandon Goodwin, Kevin Huerter, Danilo Gallinari, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and John Collins. I think that is going to be the starting five. To me, I still have a lot of interest in Brandon Goodwin. I think DraftKings absolutely play him in cash games. Whether you want to be over or underweight to the field in tournaments, I'm personally overweight to the field. So maybe direct your chalk jokes at me today, right? I think that maybe I deserve them instead of Eric because I'm on Brandon Goodwin today. Unless we find out he isn't starting, then we're going to have to change it. But as of right now, I expect he's going to start. The other guy I'm on in a pretty big way right now is John Collins. Just looking at the numbers this year for Trae Young and Clint Capella off the court, John Collins leads Atlanta with 30.8% usage rate with those guys off the court, scores 48.05 DraftKings points per 36 minutes. So John Collins, is he somebody you're getting to a lot right now? Because he's become somebody who is now a core play for me on FanDuel and DraftKings, particularly when Capella was rolled out.
I don't know. I have some minutes concerns. So that's really what it comes down to. If you can see him getting to 30 plus minutes in this spot, go ahead and fire him up as much as you possibly can. 6,800, as you just spoke to, the rates with Capella off the floor are nifty, but I don't know if he's going to be getting to that kind of a ballpark range. And I think that there's some pivots depending on what that ownership gets to as we get closer to lock on that last update, not nearly as high as what I was expecting. I'm definitely going to have some at the number it's at now, but I expect that to continue to possibly go up into past the teens. And at that point, I got to start showing a little bit of apprehension of getting all the way up there. I just don't know at 6,800 if you can pay that off in 25, 26 minutes, if that's going to be the ballpark. We did see him get up to 28 last time. That's kind of where Awesemo has him pegged in at. But yeah, 30 minutes is kind of what I would be wanting in that spot. Do you think he gets there?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple of things to consider here. First of all, he played 28 minutes last game. He also got into foul trouble, right? He picked up 4 fouls in that game. And had that not happened, I think he could have played more minutes. The other thing also, there's a lot of gravity to this game. We talked about this a little bit yesterday and how I talked about wanting to bet the Heat to win the division after we found out that Trae Young was going to be out, because this game is very, very important with divisional implications for the Atlanta Hawks. If the Hawks lose this game, they lose their lead to the Miami Heat in the division. So unless we find out that John Collins is going to be playing somewhat restricted minutes again, I have him playing 32 minutes right now. And given what we've seen from his numbers with Trae Young, with Clint Capella off the court, that has me projecting him for about 38 fantasy points right now. And that to me makes him a very, very strong fantasy play.
We just got Danilo Gallinari ruled in. Does that change anything for you?
No, because I already had him in.
You already had Gallo in. Okay. So just checking that. So you think he's going to probably be going 31, 32 minutes minimum, or I guess minimum is probably the wrong way of saying it. 32 minutes you feel like is kind of the ballpark for him.
Yeah, so here's the funny thing is I have him for 32 minutes. The range of outcomes here is pretty wide, though.
Yes.
Right? He could play 28 minutes. Like I said, it's definitely potentially plays 28 minutes, but he played 28 minutes last game, and the way that the minutes are trending up, I assume he gets over 30. Like I said, also, this game is really important, and it's possible to just say, hey, we need to win this game. What are we restricting him for at this point? There's a chance if the Hawks lose this game, they potentially fall all the way to the play-in game. They start to really run the risk of falling out of the playoffs. If they win this game, they're sitting really good in the divisional race, because then they hold the tiebreaker, I believe, over the Heat and a 2-game lead in division. They come fairly close to clinching the division with a win today. So to me, I think they try to play Collins as many minutes as he could handle, unless there's some reason that he's, super restricted at this point to where the doctors don't recommend it. So If he plays 36 minutes also, I'm not surprised. Like, that wouldn't shock me. And he probably breaks the slate if he gets that kind of playing time.
I agree with that. Again, you have a tough matchup too. There's so many factors that are kind of going into that, which is why I'm kind of defaulting to ownership as kind of my tiebreaker. What that number gets to, I think if it gets over top of 20%, 25% over here on DK, which is where I'm primarily playing at today, I think I'm going to show a little bit of apprehension, especially because I think a Kongwu at 3,100 is a piece of chalk that I am very, very happy to get to now at this point in time. Makes a lot of builds work with him, with Goodwin. Do I want to really expose myself to 3-4 guys in a lineup from the Hawks? Not really feeling that necessarily, but as you said, like that's just a lot of value to go around. But Bogdanovic, I feel like cuts in enough. Danilo Gallinari cuts in enough where if he gets too popular, if he gets up in that 25% ballpark, I'm definitely going to just take approach where I'm lighter on him.
And so here's something now, and by the way, the ownership projections free up on the site, so you could go check those out. Somebody who's coming out as a chalk play, other than Brandon Goodwin, he's going to be popular today. I think it's hard to get away from him, like I said, at least in cash games on DraftKings. Onyeka Okongwu right now is projecting for 24% ownership. And if he starts, I get it. If he comes off the bench, and if I am correct in that John Collins plays a full allotment of minutes, we could see Okongwu play something like 12, 14 minutes if he's just going to be splitting minutes with John Collins and he's unrestricted. Like, it's potential we see 34 minutes go to Collins and 14 minutes go to Okongwu. So if Okongwu comes off the bench and there's no minutes restriction for Collins, I think he's going wildly overowned. So he's actually somebody I only have 5% exposure to right now, unless we find out that he's starting. So
Right.
Do you feel any differently than me on that?
No, I and that's where you listed off the starting lineup. I guess I didn't necessarily say that I was against that, but I think Okongwu probably does start. For whatever reason, it seems like Collins has been just kind of slotted in at the 4 alongside Capella for so long that I think that's probably a 1-for-1 swap where they put in Okongwu there. Which should kill a little bit of his rates. If Collins is playing the 5, if you're right about that, if it's going to be him and Bam in that starting unit, I right there with you. I think Collins is a much better play. The rebound rate goes up. When you look at it with Capella, there's not enough of a sample to really look at it as a Okongwu, but you gotta just think about that naturally. Where Capella, it's like the same kind of a dude coming in there who is going to affect his rebound rate in the same way.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up what the rotation, the minutes were the last time that Capella was out, but that we also had John Collins active, because the last couple of times that Capella was not active, Collins was also out. So we could see. All right, here we go. All right, so against the Houston Rockets on March 16th, John Collins was active. Clint Capella was out. The starting lineup was Tony Snell was in the starting lineup. He's out today, but it was Trae Young, Danilo Gallinari, Kevin Huerter, Tony Snell, and John Collins. They also had Rajon Rondo then. Bogdanovic came off the bench at that point. Bogdanovic, I assume, we know he's going to just end up being starting in place of Tony Snell, and then we could plug in Goodwin in place of Trae Young. Okongwu played 0 minutes that game. He was not in the rotation. Does that change your opinion on anything?
Wasn't he hurt? I think he was hurt at that point in time. So I don't think he was out of the rotation. I think he was hurt. Double check that.
I think he was out of the rotation.
Interesting.
Because
okay.
Even the games after that, he only played 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes.
Got it. Okay, because there was a string of games that I thought he was hurt for as well. So just double checking on that, doing our due diligence. But yeah, if Okongwu's not in the starting lineup, he is going to lose a lot of interest, but I'm still going to get to 5-10% on the off chance. Not very rare to think that John Collins could get in foul trouble up against Bam Adebayo, as is too. And at 3,100, if you were to get to 20 minutes, you're going to want him.
Yeah, and then like I said, if Okongwu, if once we get that starting lineup, I think we'll have to double back and figure out what's going on there. By the way, the Washington Wizards starting lineup. Did you happen to catch this one? Because Isaac Bonga starting for the Washington Wizards. So is he somebody that you think you could potentially have interest in? The Wizards. So here's actually what's the full starting lineup?
Isaac Bonga. Yeah, that's going to be a no from me.
It is Westbrook, Neto, Beal, Bonga, and Alex Len starting tonight for the Wizards. That's not what I was expecting. I don't really know what I was expecting with all the injuries they're dealing with, but I was not expecting Bonga to start.
So if you sort on Fantasy Cruncher by fantasy point per minute rates, You have somebody named Kelvin Blevins, who's 0.3. Then it becomes 0.48 Romeo Langford. He is now 5th. So there's like a bunch of dudes at 0.53, KZ Akpala, Isaac Okoro. That's Isak Bonga sitting there at 0.54 DraftKings points per minute. If he were to play 25 minutes, I would have no interest in him. Definitely not going to be somebody even at 3K that I really want to cast my net out for.
So this actually is going to change my lineups a little bit because I liked Davis Bertans a lot as a value play. And looking at the minutes I actually had Bertans starting. So I'm going to have to take away a couple minutes from Bertans. He's still a viable value option for me, but he goes from a guy who is in like 40% of my lineups to now he's going to come down a good amount just by taking a few minutes away from him. Raul Neto, to me, still somebody I'm going to be getting to. He's, to me, a chalk play that's also a little hard to avoid. But how about you, Mr. Chalk Eric? Raul Neto versus Brandon Goodwin on DraftKings. Which player do you have more interest in, or do you not like either of them? Because I know you already said you don't like Goodwin as much as the field.
Oh, I like Goodwin. I don't like him as much on FanDuel.
Okay.
FanDuel, where he's 5K, 3,400 on DK. I think I would much rather take that side of it. So Raul Neto came in. We had the Denny Avdia injury, prayers up, all that good stuff. He ended up missing out on the entire second half there. That injury happened at the very end of the first half. Raul Neto played that entire third quarter and in closing time. I guess I'm just not kind of convinced that that's going to be what they do going forward. Golden State's kind of a smaller team in general as well. Not saying that this is like a perfect scenario, but OKC, Moses Brown out there, Isaiah Roby out there, enough bodies, like bigger bodies. I don't know if they're necessarily going to be going small there. I guess I'm just not sold that it's like a for sure thing lock that Neto gets above 30 minutes. I think Alex has him just short of that. I think you can't really play. I don't want to be super chalky and play both of them in all of my lineups. If I were playing cash games, I think that there's a viable route to having those kind of be the guys. But in tournaments, I'm going to go a little bit lighter on Neto, a little bit over on Goodwin, and kind of make my stand there. What say you?
So I like Neto a lot. However, I also have a pivot play. Like I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Neto. I'm not going to talk anybody off of him. Play him in cash games on both FanDuel and DraftKings. For tournaments, I also like Neto a lot. However, I do have a pivot play, and that is Ish Smith. So,
yes.
So Neto's minutes, like you said, they were massive last game. I still am giving him a lot of minutes, but do I think he's guaranteed to play 36 minutes again or north of 30? No, I don't. And if he doesn't get those minutes, I think they go to Ish Smith. And Ish Smith is a guy who we've seen have fantasy success in the past when he plays extended minutes. I have him projected fairly well. I gave him 24 minutes for tonight. But is there a chance that Neto struggles, gets into foul trouble, or they just go to Ish Smith over him for whatever reason? Because I mean, he's Raul Neto, right? Like there's no reason we look at it. It's like, oh, Neto has to be guaranteed to play big minutes. I don't think he has to. And if he doesn't, then I have to start to look into like, okay, the one thing that, not to go too far off on a tangent because I want to keep my train of thought here on the Neto versus Smith point, but one thing that's hard with NBA projections is you could only assign one set of minutes to each player, and oftentimes they're variable. It's not with somebody like Russell Westbrook or Bradley Beal on the Wizards. They're locked into their minutes. Raul Neto, after playing a ton of minutes last game, I just choked on air. I think it was. I don't know what it was. Yeah, I don't know what it was.
All the hair you don't have.
Yeah,
it's cool.
It was great. Hair from before that got in my mouth. But anyway, you could only give 1 minutes set to each individual player. So Raul Neto, I'm giving him big minutes, but that doesn't mean I think he's guaranteed for those minutes. And I think that Ish Smith, I'm giving him 24, but I think he has the upside to play, like 28 to 30 minutes if Neto struggles. So Ish Smith is somebody who I'm forcing into like 5 to 10% of my lineups and making a rule in Fantasy Cruncher to not include him in the same lineups with Neto. I think they negatively correlate, but I think he's a good GPP pivot. Did you get to him at all?
I had about 8% right now. I might be bumping him up even a little bit more. I think that is some sound logic on it. I already had a group set up where I'm not going to get them in the same lineups. That was kind of I don't make as many groups as I used to earlier in the season because I think some of the rotations are overlapping. We're seeing Beal play small forward in some of these 3 guard sets, but I think Ish Smith and a guy like Neto are going to be a little bit negatively correlated in terms of like Ish Smith is going to have his ceiling games most of the time because of an issue with Neto in this spot. And I don't think Neto's like somebody that from a fantasy point perspective, like 0.8 fantasy points per minute. He's not a poor fantasy producer by any means. He's not somebody like the aforementioned Okpala or Isaac Okoro or any of those dudes. But I do have my concerns that maybe 30 minutes is a little bit high. And one of the main paths would be Ish Smith coming in, playing well, and eating into those numbers.
Yeah, and still no starting lineup yet for the Washington Wizards. Let me see. Do they play in the first game of the night? No, they have 8 p.m. Eastern time lock, so not quite.
Holy crap, what happened to Topher Grace's hair? Is he going to start an action movie now or something? Yeah, I was going to say he's reinventing himself, trying to brand himself out. It's been a while. I think he's like in some movie that's coming out here soon. I saw something with him. Let me find out what that was. I know everybody cares.
He was a really weird cast for Venom. Like, it just, if you think of people that play like Eddie Brock and Venom, I just wouldn't go to Topher Grace. By the way, it's something else we mentioned before. When people are referencing us on the same show looking like Topher Grace, I don't know whether they're talking about me or you. Like, it could be either one of us that they're saying looks like Topher Grace, and it would be, to me, like fairly acceptable. But
you put it perfectly, where it's like the evolution thing, where like Topher Grace is right in the middle of you and me. So it's like, it's not like we're looking identical to it, but we're right kind of like on the poles of him. But Home Economics, that was the TV show that he's in on ABC, letting it be known.
Never heard of it. Never heard of it.
Well, it's on. It's like just hitting the air now, I think.
All right. Other news items. I think that's everything recent that they've gotten to so far. John Wall is going to play today. He's going to rest tomorrow. Doesn't matter for today's slate. But all right, let's go position by position now, starting with the point guards. We've talked about some of the chalk here. Raul Neto, Brandon Goodwin. Goodwin, like we said, different play on DraftKings versus FanDuel. But who are some of the point guards you have the most exposure to? And let's talk about the pay up options, because it's a pretty loaded point guard position at the high end. So who is your priority to pay up for?
My priority is Russell Westbrook. I don't think that'll shock anybody whatsoever. What is very surprising, I have like 2% Steph Curry today. So I'm definitely not on the Steph Curry train up against Denver. Again, I think he was just shooting a little bit over his head. I didn't hate him on the last slate against Washington. I didn't think that was going to be the spot where he started regressing, but I'm not expecting 2 for 14 from 3 either. But some of these shooting runs that he's been on, now you add Kelly Oubre back into the fray. I know you're taking Kent Bazemore off the court, but Kelly Oubre, a much higher usage guy. I don't want to be paying 10-3 for a guy who's completely shot dependent for the most part. He put up more stats than he normally does, 8 assists, 7 rebounds last time out. Still kind of hit a floor performance. I just don't think hitting 10 threes a night is that sustainable, as good as Steph Curry is. And so even at 15% ownership, that's kind of one of my stands on the top end, where I'm way, way, way underneath the field. And the same thing with Damian Lillard, where I'm really not there at all. I thought maybe he would make sense as a pivot, but 9,500 alongside CJ McCollum, alongside some of these other pieces, Norman Powell, much more usage prone than what Gary Trent was in Portland. 9,500, I'm not getting to any of him either. So not just Russell Westbrook getting up there to him, but I'm so light on some of these other point guards.
So I think you hit on something that's pretty important there with Steph Curry. So last game he had, I think off the top of my head, it was 33.4% usage. I'm going to bring that up really quick though, but that's obviously still a very, it was 33.4.
You got that 100% correct. 33.4.
So that's still a very big number, except his usage overall for the last couple of weeks has been close to 40%. And one of the reasons it went down, like you said, Oubre being back matters. It doesn't all of a sudden nerf Steph to the point where he's not viable or anything like that. I have a small percentage of Steph, except it brings down his usage to the point where, and also Kelly Oubre played 36 minutes last game. It brings down Steph to the point where I prefer Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook to them. And I don't think that's any sort of knock on Steph Curry. It's just that he's playing at a position that's very loaded tonight. And I'm making it a higher priority to get to Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook in my lineups. I have more exposure to Kyrie than I do to Russ, but I'm overweight to the field on both of those guys. And in our latest run of ownership, Russell Westbrook, 26.6% rostered on DraftKings, Kyrie Irving, 25.6%. And then on FanDuel, Kyrie Irving is the chalk of the slate at 37% and Russell Westbrook at 24.2%. There's also a pretty big price gap between them. But I like Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook more than Steph Curry today. Doesn't mean I hate Steph Curry. It's just I can't roster everybody on a slate of this size, and there's a lot of guys to pay up for.
Yeah, and that's exactly the way to look at it. Another guy, this isn't even necessarily the position where it's like, oh, this is who I'm playing. It's more of like who I'm not. It's very shocking to not see how much of those guys that I'm getting Steph Curry how much that I'm getting to of Damian Lillard, just not much at all. Terry Rozier, another guy that I'm getting basically none of on this slate. You could put Devontae Graham back on the floor alongside him. Miles Bridges stepping into a larger offensive role. It's just not a great spot for paying $8,700 for Terry Rozier against a slower paced Cleveland team. Like, I would rather take my shots with Marcus Smart for cheaper and pay up in other places and use that money and put it to work. Lou Williams, even not somebody that I'm getting to in like a meaningful way, but I have more of than those guys because we know the kind of upside that exists. I know he's only had the one game where he's really exceeded 22 DraftKings points since I believe the 2nd of April. So he's had one big ceiling game since he's been a part of Atlanta, but they're going to need guys who put it in the bucket. And if he goes out and gets hot, that's a good place to invest too. I just would rather take some shots there than paying up for some of these guys that I just don't see a 55, 60 point ceiling. Now, would it be surprising if Damian Lillard went out and just blitzed this entire slate? No, but Russell Westbrook's only coming in at like 28% owned on DraftKings, which is way too low compared to what he should be for only being 11K. I just think he's underpriced. So I'm not going to do shooting dependent Steph for half the ownership. I'm not going to go to Damian Lillard alongside CJ. It just becomes a pretty straightforward position for me.
All right. Oh, by the way, I just thought of something, guys. Like the video that we're doing right now. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you guys subscribe, then Eric and I are going to do a new segment that I just created. It's going to be called Chalk Talk. All right. So you guys like the video, subscribe, and then Eric and I, the brand new Chalk Talk segment, gonna blow your minds. Probably not, but it's going to be some decent information for a couple minutes.
It's going to be garbage. Who cares?
It's going to be the 6th best thing that's happened to you on this Friday, guaranteed. All right. Other point guards. Oh, you know who's one guy that we did not yet mention that I have a little bit of interest in, especially because of the news we just got that he's going to rest tomorrow, is John Wall. So John Wall playing against the Clippers, generally a tough matchup, but the Clippers are a little banged up right now, right? I mean, Kawhi Leonard is going to be out actually, I assume he's going to be back early next week. I think the foot injury is Fugazi. I think they're just like, hey, we have a bunch of easy matchups coming up. We like to rest Kawhi. We like to rest Paul George. So this also is a good opportunity to rest him and still pick up wins. But easier matchup than it would typically appear on paper. And with news that John Wall is going to be resting tomorrow, I assume that means he's full go today. I think he's going to play as many minutes as he can handle. He's going to take as many shots as he wants while he's out there. So John Wall, at first I was thinking like it shouldn't matter that he's resting tomorrow. But now the more I think about it, I think that's reason to think he could play a couple extra minutes. So John Wall is a contrarian option. Is he somebody who you have any interest in?
So I pretty much have 7 point guards that are eating up a bunch of the bulk of my ownership on DK. So I have 210 lineups over there. I have 72% Russ, like way over the field. Good wins, 60%. As I said, high there. John Wall's third, 45%. I love the news getting that he's going to be resting on the second half of it. I feel like that gives him the ability to be a full go. They're not trying to like lower his minutes to be able to play him both days. There's really no purpose. I mean, Houston's just garbage. They're not good. So go out there, give John Wall all the run. I think that that's expressed pretty darn well in Awesemo's ownership today too, or in their projections, well over 40 at that price point. That's just a fantastic deal to be getting to. So I really, really like that call. Kyrie just below him at 35%. And then you're getting down into the Ja Morant, Marcus Smart, and then a little bit of Howell Neto.
All right, guys. I don't have any way of tracking subscriptions while we're doing the show, but I'm just going to assume you guys did what I asked you to. So it's time for the brand new Chalk Talk segment. So here's how it's going to work, Eric. We're going to go through the FanDuel and the DraftKings ownership. By the way, free today on Awesemo.com. And we're going to say which player who's owned over 20% on DraftKings and over 20% on FanDuel is most likely to bust. And then which player who's owned under 20% should be owned over 20%. All right.
Oh, so this is a lovely game.
Yep, the brand new Chalk Talk segment. So we'll start with DraftKings, somebody who I talked a little bit about before. The guy who I think is most likely to bust owned over 20% right now is Okongwu. Unless we find out he's starting, I don't think his minutes are very secure right now. I'll change my stance if he ends up in the starting lineup. But as of right now, I think he's a pretty risky play for over 20% ownership. Even though he's cheap, just because I'm not convinced the minutes are going to be there. So who is your guy that is over-owned on DraftKings, over 20%? And then we'll do FanDuel.
Yeah, I think he's probably the chalk of this game and the non-chalk route, the way that I'm thinking about that. If he's not starting, definitely the guy. I'm going to probably go with Tristan Thompson at 4,900 being the next guy. He's sitting there right at 20%. I'm just at 4,900. He's not the most involved human being on planet Earth when he's on a floor. Sure, he can get to the double-double side of it. We're projecting him for 32 minutes, which is a big number, but just so uninvolved on the offensive end. 0.9 fantasy point per minute number is fine. But I have a little bit of reservations playing him at a center position. Where you have Nurkic, where you have Jokic, where you have some of these other guys that just substantially sit there higher. So not saying that there aren't some good options, and not saying that like Tristan Thompson isn't viable by any means. He definitely is, has a 31% boom percentage in the boom bust score, or in the boom bust tool today, basically at flat leverage. But I think out of the rest of that grouping that he definitely is a bust candidate.
All right. And now for the player on DraftKings that I think should be picking up more ownership, it's Kelly Oubre. So there's no Kent Bazemore in the lineup for the Warriors. And last game, Oubre played 37 minutes. I don't know whether Oubre is going to start or come off the bench, except I have him in about half my lineups right now. He's projecting for me for not enough ownership. And I think Kelly Oubre, it's not the best matchup in the world against Denver, but the Warriors absolutely need to win games right now. Oubre looks healthy, and given how many minutes he played last game, I expect him to play a healthy role today, especially with Kent Bazemore out. That and his price is down. Before we saw him, let's see, when was it? So he missed some time due to injury, but before he got hurt, his price was at $6,800. So now on DraftKings, his price has come all the way down to $5,800. So we're getting $1,000 price discount just basically because he was hurt. It's not like he struggled. It's not like he played poorly. He just didn't play games because he had a wrist injury. He's back. He's unrestricted. I always like to use historical pricing as a guideline for finding value. And so to me, Kelly Oubre should be higher owned.
That's a great call. So it has to be somebody under 20%, if I'm understanding the game correctly.
Somebody under 20% that you think should be over 20%.
I'm probably going to go with DeAndre Jordan, and it makes me feel really, really disgusting, but 3,900 for him. I didn't know if you'd seen this. So there was a fascinating stat. So 13 of DeAndre Jordan's last 16 games, he's had, and I think plus minus is a very noisy stat. But actually, it's 14 of his last 16 games. He's had a negative number next to his name in the plus minus. That's an astounding number because one, the Nets are very good at basketball and you should be backing into some plus minuses there. Two, they've won 13 of those 16 games outright. So that tells you how bad they've been on the floor with DeAndre Jordan alongside it. But that being said, you get Claxton out of there. You get some of these, it's a shorter rotation. He did play 33 minutes and 28 minutes the last two, one starting, one coming off the bench. I would like to see him starting very, very much. And I didn't see that Brooklyn lineup. If he's in that starting lineup, 3,900, I'm going to be jamming a lot more than the field on DraftKings.
Yeah, I'm just checking to see really quick if there is a Nets starting lineup yet. And by the way, we do have the Nets starting lineup. Is Kyrie Irving, Landry Shamet, Joe Harris, Jeff Green, and DeAndre Jordan is the starting five for the Nets.
Yeah, so I had 40% of him in my last run at center. He was the one guy. He's sitting lower than Jokic and Nurk, which is why I didn't bring that up. But I am rotating between those three a heavy amount. Do I feel great about it? Absolutely not. But he's a fantasy point per minute producer. If you put him in for 30 minutes under 4K, I don't understand why he's not 25% owned.
Well, I don't think he plays 30 minutes, but I do think he's a good GPP play. But yeah, I would be surprised if he plays over 30 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying he played 29. Yeah, what was it? 29 against Toronto in that loss. 21. Let's see, 21. There was a number 26. Okay, so it was 29 minutes. He played pretty darn well up against Embiid there. It really comes down to trying for them to just basically extend him. He had 6 DNP CDs in the middle of that as well, in that run that I was talking about with plus minus. But that's just kind of an astounding number. But as I said, he's under 4K. I'm happy to roll the dice in tournaments.
All right. And now let's get to the FanDuel chalk talk. So which player on FanDuel owned over 20% is most likely to bust? I'm going to go with Michael Porter Jr. I mean, he's been so inconsistent throughout the year, and I know that there's more usage going to him as of late with Jamal Murray out, but $7,400 for Michael Porter Jr., that feels like a ceiling price to me. He's somebody who I don't think warrants quite that much ownership. There are other small forward plays that I prefer to him on the slate. I like getting to Joe Harris. I like getting to Jimmy Butler. I like getting to Bogdan Bogdanovic now that we have Trae Young and Clint Capella out. So to me, Michael Porter Jr. going a little bit over-owned at a pretty steep $7,400 price tag. So for you, who do you believe is going over-owned on FanDuel?
I'm going to stick with Tristan Thompson over there too. Highest owned center. I know the price point is nifty at 4,800 and all, but depending, if we get a Kongwu in the starting lineup, that's going to be somebody at 4K that you're going to want to get a lot of. Bam Adebayo in that same spot. Now not going to have to deal with Clint Capella, 8,500. I like him at tournaments. I don't understand why he's at 4.4%. I feel like that's kind of a misprice, especially when you have guys like Goodwin and Neto and some of these other plays that are cheap at other positions, why you can't mix and match and try to get off of a Tristan Thompson. Now, I know he's projected for 32 minutes, but him being the highest owned center is a little bit off for me. I would rather be overweight to a guy like Jokic, be overweight on Nurkic, be overweight on Bam, and then a Kongwu if he's starting. So Tristan Thompson there as well.
All right. And now going over to the guy who should be over 20% owned that's under right now. I'm going to go with Kevin Love. My answer would be Kelly Oubre, but I don't want to do Kelly Oubre for both FanDuel and DraftKings. I want to throw somebody else out. So,
I cheated. Yeah. It's fine.
So Kevin Love for me is somebody who I'm overweight to the field on both DraftKings and FanDuel in my builds right now. Even with Larry Nance back, Jared Allen back, the minutes for Kevin Love have been pretty solid as of late, as long as the games are competitive. And I mean, the last 3 games, 30 minutes, 26 minutes last game, but it was because they won by 16 points. This is a game against the Hornets. It only has a 1-point spread. You know, Hornets missing LaMelo Ball, missing Gordon Hayward. This game is expected to be competitive. So with that in mind, Kevin Love is still a strong points per minute fantasy producer at this point in his career. The usage is there. The playing time is there. So Kevin Love, I think, is a good under-owned play today.
Jeff Green at 6%, where you have to play 2 power forwards, kind of sticks out for me. If DeAndre Jordan isn't going to be getting the minutes, they have to go somewhere else, and it'll be small ball with Jeff Green for primarily a lot of that. Had a pretty bad game against Toronto last time out, 29 minutes there, but saw those minutes get extended against New Orleans up to 33. Had a 21% usage rate there, 36.8. On FanDuel. At that power forward position, it's basically Jason Tatum and everybody else. And so I kind of cast a wider net there. I'm not playing much on FanDuel, but I think casting a wider net at some of those other pieces, getting off of like Xavier Tillman, Bertans, Pokashevsky, who are coming in for higher ownership, I'd rather kind of make a stand with Jeff Green there.
All right. And we do have a super chat here from Dominic Richards. He's asking Norman Powell or Slow-Mo, that is Kyle Anderson, and a FanDuel GPP. I don't really like either of them, to be honest. So Kyle Anderson, one of the issues I have with him is that we have guys coming back for the Memphis Grizzlies. So Jaren Jackson Jr. is now back. Justice Winslow, he's back in the mix. So I don't really like Kyle Anderson that much. I think he's very close to Norman Powell. To me, I'd say neither, but Norman Powell if I have to pick one. So go ahead, Eric.
Look at the Hawks starting lineup.
Okay. So I'm going to have to redo some stuff there, but all right. Give your answer to Norman Powell versus Kyle Anderson. And then we'll talk about Kongwu starting for the Hawks.
Yeah, we have 19 minutes. We're fine.
Yeah.
I like Norman Powell. If you're like targeting an upside, Portland, fast paced, give me a little bit of that. Jaren Jackson Jr. Yeah, no.
All right, so let's get over to Atlanta now. So everything I said before when we were talking about Atlanta with Okongwu, I don't think he's under-owned anymore. Now Okongwu, very strong play, 3,100. This is how quickly things change because basically you have to guess when it comes to starting lineups. And
that's not the most important part is not Okongwu. It's the fact that Goodwin isn't starting.
I didn't even notice that. I just saw that Okongwu was starting. So let me read off the full. So here we go. So we do have News God posted in our Slack chat. Here we go. Kevin Herter, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Solomon Hill, John Collins, and Onyeka Okongwu. So that is the starting 5. Goodwin becomes much lower of a priority play now. Okongwu becomes now a priority play for me. And I have to downgrade John Collins also because Collins is now, I assume, going to – because one of the reasons that Collins had so much success – with Clint Capella and Trae Young off the court this year, or especially Clint Capella off the court, is because his rebound rate has gone up so high and he's played a lot more center minutes. Now Okongwu is going to pull down some of those boards. So I'm still going to be getting to John Collins, but he's not nearly the same priority play for me.
Yeah, you can basically see his game log whenever Capella was out because it goes from like 3 to 15 to 2, 4, 5, 12. It's like all of his double-digit games have just been nuts with Capella off, but yeah, Kongwu, that's fantastic. Good win. You don't exist anymore. See, this is now the issue because a lot of the ways that I was building today, I'm not going to completely lose Goodwin, but I'm going to lose him in terms of where I'm at compared to the field, because I don't think the field is going to be able to react in the next 18 minutes completely to this news. Like, I still think he's going to come in well over 15%. Do you agree with that, Goodwin?
We'll see what the latest. I'll see if there's an ownership update. Not quite yet for the starting lineup. Potentially. I don't know though.
I think we're giving the field too much credit. Like, I think that's what it is that he's been written up all day. He's been in everybody's builds pretty much since this morning. I don't know if it completely gets off. That's what gets me away from like wanting to go to like 0% of him. Plus he's 3,400. He's going to have to play some kind of a role. But the way it looks to me is that they're going to play Bogdanovich and just kind of like play him with the ball in his hand. He's the guy who has the highest assist rate with all these other, with Trae Young off the floor. Him and Lou Williams will probably back him up a little bit. Goodwin, though, probably plays 20 minutes now in this spot. He goes from a guy who I was projecting for around 32 to around 20. Yeah, I'm probably going to get to 0 now.
There was a game, let me pull up the box scores here. There was a game where Trae Young was out that Goodwin was chalk, that he ended up playing very, very limited minutes. And I would not be surprised if we see something similar to that. And actually, here's something else.
Was Rondo active then or not? Was Rondo around?
I don't even remember. Not enough time for me to look. And also, I want to answer the super chat that also we got from Zach Anderson. And then while you're getting an answer to that, I will look it up. But so Zach Anderson, something else, I do think this is an interesting point. Is Bam at 6% ownership on DK way low in your opinion, especially going against a rookie? So actually, yes, to me. Bam Adebayo, I think, does make for a good contrarian GPP play. Number one, Clint Capella has been by far the best defensive player for the Hawks this year. And one of the reasons that the Hawks are in the playoff picture and they're above 500 this year, like, yeah, obviously Trae Young is a big, important part of the offense, but Clint Capella, like, I don't actually buy into all of these numbers entirely, but like, if you go to the 538 individual player rankings, they have Clint Capella as the most valuable player on the Hawks because of his defense over Trae Young. And going to Basketball Reference really quick, I'm going to look at the on-off court numbers for Clint Capella, but I'm pretty sure that the Hawks defense totally tanks when he's off the court. Anyway, the point being here is, yeah, I think this is a really good spot for Bam Adebayo, and I am going to be getting to more exposure to him than the field has. The defensive numbers this year. Yeah, when Clint Capella is off the court this season, the Hawks allow 7.2 more points per 100 possessions. Like, they're a disaster on defense when he isn't on the court, and no player benefits from that individually more than Bam Adebayo will. So, yeah, I definitely think that Bam as a GPP play is somebody to look at.
I absolutely agree. And I think I brought that up a little bit when we were talking about it on FanDuel. It's something you and I think have talked about the last couple of months as we've done some NBA shows together, is remember to analyze the other side of the matchup when somebody's ruled out, because we get such a habit. It's so easy to naturally look at it and say, Clint Capella's not playing Okongwu now that he's in the starting lineup. But what gets underrated is that now Bam doesn't have to deal with Clint Capella. That's a big deal. And so I was saying that Bam was very, very underrepresented over on FanDuel. I think on DraftKings, 6% where you can play two centers and kind of mix and match. I definitely want to be double the field at least.
All right, another super chat here. This is from Noah DeComis. Sorry, I probably pronounced your last name wrong, but he's asking Wall and Bogdan or Kyrie and Oubre. That is Kyrie and Oubre for me.
Kyrie and Oubre.
All right, and I think that covers the super chats that we have for now. But have you updated your lineups at all for the Hawks news? Because that is what I am doing right now.
Yeah, I'm ferociously trying to figure out how to temper getting Okongwu in like almost everything, because a lot of my DeAndre Jordan, I was well over the field there, is going to get cut into it. I'm still getting to 22% DeAndre Jordan, so I'm fine with that. 37% Jokic, but Okongwu, I just basically capped at 60%, and I'm going to live my life accordingly.
Are you getting to Lou Williams at all?
I was a little bit more, but let me see where he ended up at. Yeah, I had a cap on him earlier that I had to remove here. So now let me run it without it capped. Because I was just getting too much as well. Sometimes when you're doing a show, you just kind of want to like hard cap them and not think about it too much, rather than being like, oh, this is the correct way of doing it. It's like, I don't want more than 10% Lou Williams, but now I'm getting 14 when I don't cap him. So I think that's fine.
So here's something else I thought, because just before you were asking me about Brandon Goodwin and if Rondo was in the rotation at the time, I almost think it doesn't matter because we have Lou Williams now. Right. So even if Rondo is playing minutes ahead of Goodwin, like Lou Williams is going to play those minutes, or maybe even more of the minutes that Lou Williams played. It looks like I'm not going to get to Brandon Goodwin at all, especially if his ownership doesn't move. I'm going to refresh the ownership page to see if that's changed at all.
1%. I manually changed him to 20 minutes, and it cut him drastically because of course it is.
All right, we do have a fresh ownership update here. It's from a minute ago, except Goodwin's still projecting for 34.2% ownership.
I think you're underestimating how owned he's still going to be. I think it's going to be a large number still. We in fantasy circles, everybody watching the show, I mean, we have 2,600 people in here watching. First of all, thanks for hanging out with us and kicking it. But also think about it from terms of what else is going on in the industry, and people don't react to this stuff within 20 minutes. If this happened 45 minutes ago as they're building their lineups, it's kind of like whatever, but there are people that I think are very good fantasy players who still don't necessarily buy into late swap the way that you and I do, or the way that a lot of top players, again, people who play every single day, who just kind of adamantly don't change stuff the way that they should leading up to like when something big like this happens. Also, I love that this game locks at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, because I just don't think it's going to change. Like I think 15% is about the right number, and that's basically paying your rake today.
So I just updated my lineups. I have no lineups with Brandon Goodwin in now. If he's going to be 34% owned, I'm not going to play him.
Yep, same. Yeah, I have 1%.
Who are some of the cheap point guards you are getting to now?
So now, okay. So everything I said about Neto went out the window, because I don't know where else to get some of those savings before, if I'm going to get up to Jokic and if I'm going to get up to Bam, if I'm going to be transferring back and forth. Because again, 60% of Kongwu sounds about right for me. It feels like 4x the field, 3x the field on where he's going to land at. I think, oh gosh. Yeah, I really think that it's just going to kind of become Neto here at this point. Lou Williams does make some sense. I'm getting to basically double what I had before of Lou Williams, maybe a little bit more than double from where he was at. Now the savings are kind of turning into a little bit of small forward, kind of going into that mid-range. I wasn't really there on a meaningful way of 7,700 Michael Porter Jr., so that's not an issue. But Kevin Huerter, now 5,800, getting a little bit more of him as well. Now that I at least have that starting news, he's in the starting lineup, correct? Did I just see that?
Kevin Huerter?
Checking it. Yeah.
Yes, he's starting.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's probably going to be somebody that I get to a little bit more of than what I was. Not going to project out fantastically well, but think that there's at least the opportunity for, if Bogdanovich is going to be playing with the ball in his hand, get some open looks for Huerter. And for good old Kevin, maybe he can knock down a couple. Has shot double-digit shot attempts in, I believe, like 6 consecutive. So I like going that direction at small forward, as opposed to getting up completely to Wiggins, where I was at a little bit before. Did Bazemore just sneak back into the project? No. Okay, good. He's just still being projected for like 22%, I saw in the last run. That's not going to happen, obviously.
No, I would hope so. I would be cool with it if it does happen. But
awesome.
We do have some questions here in our premium Slack chat, so I'll start answering some of those. From Morgan2424, he's asking, Armani Brooks or Howell Neto? That is pretty easily Neto for me. I assume for you as well. Did you get to any exposure of Armani Brooks?
I got 3%. Maybe I'm just a little skewed from Rimpack whispering in my ear. Played 35 minutes in that last game, so there is that. But maybe I should be getting to a little bit more. I think him getting to 28 and a half minutes at 3,600, maybe I should reconsider getting to a little bit more now that I think about it. But not somebody who's going to project out well, but surely taking some shots on guys under 4K that aren't necessarily at center in the event that like Nurkic and the event that Jokic go for crazy games. You're going to want to punt other places, and that becomes Neto. And so, yeah, I don't mind Brooks the way that I would have 10 minutes ago with Goodwin on the slate.
Yeah, so I didn't give Brooks his minutes from last game, but I did give him 27 minutes, and that has him popping up in a few of my GPP lineups. Let's see, what is his most recent projected ownership on DraftKings? He's projected for 15% ownership. That seems about reasonable to me. It's not like he's some ultra contrarian play, but Howell Neto is a preferred option for me. From Justin Swearingen here, he's asking, can you review FanDuel GPP center ownership Tristan or Okongwu. So first of all, I'll read off some of the ownerships for those guys. Tristan Thompson on FanDuel is projecting for 24.8% ownership. Okongwu on FanDuel.
Did that update?
He's only projected for 5% ownership right now.
Get way over that.
I'm just going to refresh to make sure that's the latest number, but
20.4 is the latest number. I just got it here.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Him and Thompson are identically owned. I would rather go with Okongwu.
I have it very even. I don't really have a lean between the two. I'd actually lean maybe slightly towards Thompson. It depends what you could do with the $800 in salary, because everything else I view is about equal for me. Other centers with notable ownership, because that was part of the question. Kelly Olynyk project for 14.8% ownership, and Nikola Jokic, the most popular spend up option at 13.4% projected ownership. From Darren Unger, FanDuel Cash, Smart, Harris, Morris, or Herder, Bogdan, and Pogo. I assume that means Pogashevsky. So Smart, Harris, Morris. So to me, that's the Herder, Bogdanovich, and Pogashevsky side.
Agreed.
And all right, that is all of the super chats for now. Updating my latest lineups. Here's somebody who I'm getting to more than expected because of the Howell Neto news. And I'm curious if you have any exposure to him. Jordan Poole. So now that we have Kent Bazemore not playing, I think Jordan Poole stands to pick up some extra minutes. He's only projected for 8% ownership right now on DraftKings. If he's going to pick up a lot of those Bazemore minutes, I think he could play somewhere in the neighborhood, like upper 20s minutes. Jordan Poole, we've seen him find some success when he's played extended minutes this year. So he's somebody that I'm now overweight to the field on that I thought I was going to have hardly any exposure to. So did you get to Jordan Poole at all?
Yeah, I had 15% of him. So I like that take as well. He was just kind of a benefactor of this news. You go from trimming a guy who is going to be in 70% of your lineups to like 0. Things are going to change drastically at that position. At least they should if you're doing it correctly. And so, yeah, Jordan Poole went from a guy who was basically non-existent because of how much I was getting to Goodwin that is now sneaking into, that's getting distributed around to, I'm getting a little bit more Ish Smith, like just fractionally. I'm getting to more Armani Brooks. I'm getting to more Jordan Poole. And I think that that's kind of the way that it should be.
All right. I have my final set of lineups just about done now.
Can I ask you how much Andrew Wiggins you're getting?
Yeah. Let's see. 25%.
Okay. That's better because I'm double the field there too. And I was just kind of worried because he was somebody that I wasn't getting to I was basically at the field and now it's doubled up. And I think again, that might just be part of just the lineups having to rearrange themselves and getting to some more odd people like Will Barton. I'm getting more of those small forward spots that are just kind of meh that I wasn't necessarily at. Now I'm getting to.
So something else about the Warriors that we haven't talked about yet. It's not like overly significant. Kent Bazemore being out, that opens up minutes. Also, if Juan Toscano Anderson is questionable to play. And if he's out, that just opens up even more minutes there. And we've already seen how the Warriors are running their rotations as of late, where, like we said, they're pushing for a playoff spot. Their core guys are playing more minutes while they're trying to make the play-in game. And with that in mind, if there is no Kent Bazemore, there is no Juan Toscano Anderson today, I think we just see a ton of minutes going to guys like, other than obviously the regular guys, but also like Jordan Poole off the bench. We talked about all the minutes that Kelly Oubre played last game. Like we're going to see a very condensed rotation that just plays a ton of minutes. So that's what has me overweight to the field on a lot of these Warriors guys.
I like that. That was you putting into words what I could not process and say myself.
Well, it wasn't that complicated. I'm sure you would have been able to figure it out, but
not while I'm jamming a bunch of lineups back in. Absolutely not.
All right. So
probably shouldn't have played 3 sites today, huh? How about that? I wrote for Yahoo today and I felt like, you know what? I'm going to go encourage them and go fire some lineups over there too. Bad decision. Whew.
Right. From Told to God in our premium Slack chat, he's asking, is Bertans an okay last piece for a DraftKings single entry GPP? Yes. Yes. For me, I like Bertans tonight. I lowered my exposure to him after we found out he wasn't starting. But even so, somebody I'm getting to.
Especially at $10 on Yahoo. How about that?
Yeah, there you go. Throwing a little bit extra. From Steve McGee, a super chat here. This hurts my heart, Greg. Since you got the new haircut, Eric passed you on the swag meter.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
That's
that was
impossible.
where. Yeah, by the way, whatever his reaction was right there, definitely nerf. It just killed whatever his his swag was. Which, by the way, though, I don't claim to have swag. I just show
Yeah.
up. I'm wearing like I'm always wearing like Disney shirts.
What is
and
that
stuff like
T-shirt,
that.
by the way? What is that?
It's from Lilo and Stitch. It's
That's fantastic. I've seen that one before from you.
He's on his head. It says I tried, and he's just messed up. I think it's fitting for DFS, especially when I have if I have a bad slate, I like to put on the I tried shirt. Let's see. Anything else? What's standing out to you in your lineups? That anything you're getting to that you didn't think you were going to be getting to when you did your final run?
Stall for time for 2 seconds as I hit the export button. There we are. All right, crisis avoided. There we are. All 3 sites got them ready to rock. I would say Okongwu. I would also say that the point guard position just got really spread out. So Russell Westbrook eating up a lot of ownership on DraftKings for me, but then it becomes John Wall, Raul Neto, Smart, Morant, Kyrie, Poole, Armani Brooks, Lou Williams, kind of getting to a smattering of each, kind of progressively going from like 35 down to 10% down there to Lou Williams. So yeah, it ended up being a little bit more spread out. Still off of Steph Curry. That's still a stand that I'm taking. Maybe that's not as smart here at this point in time because we do have value at other positions, specifically center, between DeAndre Jordan and Okongwu that I still like. Tristan Thompson, if you want to take that shot as well. I'm going a little bit lower just because of ownership, not by much. But yeah, that's kind of it for me. How about you?
Let's see. I mean, the Jordan Poole one, I mean, that was why I brought it up before. I was like, boy, I'm getting a lot more than I was expecting. Let's see. Other guys. Nurkic, I think he's generally a good chalk play, though. Like, I got on some weird value plays like PJ Dozier, just because of Brandon Goodwin no longer being what I thought was going to be a really good play. And then I just thought he became not viable after we found out he wasn't starting. By the way, just curious, I'm going to see the latest ownership projections on DraftKings to see how much Goodwin has changed at this point. What is your guess? By the way, it's 5% now. Do you think he ends up being above or below that?
He will be above 5%. On
right.
Like, let's go with whatever the main the main GPP probably changes more. If you're talking like the $4, you're in the $4. Let me see. Because we just hit lock. We just locked. I'm curious
Not
what he's
showing
going
ownership
to be.
yet.
Yeah, there's that 30 seconds of time out here. Chris will hang with us. He enjoys our company. So we can take a look at it when it pops up.
All right. But anyway, guys, good luck tonight. Definitely we're going to stick just for a second. Let's play a game. So in the $4 on DraftKings, Brandon Goodwin over under 15.5%.
I'm going to go under because I'm going to take 15 on the number.
I'm going to say slightly over still. I think that think some people switch out, but to your point from before, I like how we just kind of switch stances on this. I'm taking your stance from before and you're taking mine.
I had a firm number in mind.
I think the number was so high before that people are still going to roster him. Okay, here we go. We're locked now. Let's see. Where is the... Okay, $4. Now I have to find somebody's lineup with him because
that's what I do. That's what I'm trying to do. I can't find anybody who has a lineup, which is not a great sign for the over.
I can't find him in any. There was a lineup with Okongwu. What is Okongwu at? All right, this was ill thought out. This is going to be much harder to find. By the way,
great TV. Way to finish it out. We're finishing the week with a bang. That's what we're here to do. I can't find a single lineup, but part of it is that I keep finding people's like 20 strung together, which means that they probably are a little bit sharper than the average bear. Down to 6.
No, that's on FanDuel though.
Okay.
He was 6%.
Tom Kennedy for the win.
Did you get it?
On FanDuel, he's still 6.8% in the $4 on FanDuel.
If he's 6.8% on FanDuel, he has to be at least double that on DraftKings, right?
Yep.
Because he's so much more expensive.
5.8 on DraftKings. Oh man.
Oh, but we're looking for what the actual was, not what the projected.
Goodwin is 40% owned in the $12 single entry. I want to throw that out there.
Oh wow. Okay, so he's gonna be.
How are you doing?
All right, he's gonna be like 30% owned tonight.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. We got it.
Found a lineup with him.
There we got it. From Nitram99, he says 26%. Other people are saying 40%, 32%. So yeah, it looks like in the 30 to 40% number. So there we go. Definitely Goodwin fade. Let's go Lou Williams tonight. Let's go other people on the Hawks who are not Goodwin. So with that in mind, guys, good luck tonight. Everybody have a good weekend, and I'll be back tomorrow.
Free rake.